So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
I want you to know that I'm happy for you. I wish nothing but the best for you both. I know the version of me. Is she perverted like me? Would she go down on you in a theater? Does she speak eloquently? And would she have your baby? I'm sure she'd make a really excellent mother. 'Cause the love that you gave that we made wasn't able to make it enough for you to open wide. No. And every time you speak her name, does she know how you told me you hope till you died, but you're still alive, and I'm here.
Well, I want to remind you, because you ought to know that it was on this day in 1996, so exactly 30 years ago, that Alanis Morissette was winning Best Album for Jagged Little Pill, Best Female Singer, Best Rock Album, Best Songwriter, and Best Single. Count them. 5 trophies at the 25th Juno Awards. They were held that year in Hamilton 30 years ago, this March the 10th. Alanis Morissette, a 5-time Juno Award winner, and not surprising at all. Brian Allison, our musicologist, and I talked about that on the show yesterday when he joined us for the weekly segment, Monday mornings at 11, This Week in Music History. The album Jagged Little Pill was not only a departure from the way Alanis Morissette had been recording music previously, much more of a pop sound, but she went rock with this one. It was a massive global sensation, that album was. So as a Canadian rocker, no surprise at all that she cleaned up the way she did at the Juno Awards 30 years ago today. Hey, good Tuesday morning. It's a couple minutes after 9. So glad that you are here with us. I love my 9 a.m.ers. Rise, shine, get coffee, and tune in for some conversation and interaction on the most interactive radio program anywhere in this region. Thank you very much for making some time to spend with us today. You know that the minute we begin the show every day, our phone lines are open to you so we can have that interaction. Yesterday afternoon, a little later than usual, Rosie the pandemic pup and I were out for our afternoon walk. A little later for a reason I'll get to in just a moment. But I couldn't help but notice in some of the neighborhoods we were going through, the green bins and big black garbage bins had yet to be collected. Now, I don't know how late into the evening those trucks might have been rolling. I just know that yesterday we were using an extra day to catch up on last week's first week of cart-based waste collection in this region. We had fallen so far behind. We brought in trucks from Peel Region. We worked on the weekend, and we were back at it yesterday on what is not typically going to be a collection day in the region. But I'm talking like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So hopefully, those bins were collected before nightfall and everything works out just fine, right? Because at some point, we're going to have to say, okay, week 1 is done and we're on to week 2 of our cart-based waste collection system here in the region. The reason my walk was a little later yesterday, and this ties into something I said at the beginning of the show yesterday with the whole cannot versus will not things. And I've been frustrated about that in a number of ways, right? Our school boards and the additional costs being incurred for transportation next year because they cannot, in quotes, align their calendars. No, you could. You just won't. And that's fine. But you take the $300,000, that's our money that you're always crying poor about, but you cannot. No, it's just that you will not. And I listed a few of those yesterday, and another one occurred to me. My walk was a little bit later because I was attending my first physiotherapy appointment as I continue to work through this goofy, dumb, make me feel old shoulder issue that I'm dealing with. And it was a lovely appointment, some lovely people, and I'm super impressed with the experience and the intelligence of all of the young people that are roaming all over this office, taking care of people and offering guidance and whatnot. So you know me. I'm a kind of curious guy. Not only am I not shy to make a conversation, I'm interested in, you went to McMaster. What did you learn there? Why'd you go there? This and that, all these different things. And so one of the procedures that was being done, conducted by an intern who happened to be a student at Wilfrid Laurier University. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, isn't next Tuesday the 17th? And we all know what happens at Wilfrid Laurier University on the 17th of March, right? We can try to talk about it being a university neighborhood but we all know what the epicenter is. So let's just be honest about it. And so I'm curious. I'm like, well, are you looking forward to next Tuesday? And this young lady could not have been more excited to be attending next Tuesday's party, unless she had to work. She says she gets scheduled quite a bit on Tuesdays, but she's hoping that she can avoid that next Tuesday because she's a student there, and this is what we do. And again, I'm not judging. This is fine. I have come to accept the party in our community. But here's the thing. And I'm just going to say this again because I'm listening to this young woman talk about how excited she is, and this is what we do at Laurier. It's a key part of the student experience. Checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. I get it. We've heard that over the years. But what we have also heard over the years constantly is that we're going to work to eliminate this party. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do the other thing. And I mentioned this last week, and I'm just going to mention it again right now, okay? What we could do if we wanted to, but we won't, but if we wanted to, what we could do is change reading week so that next week is reading week in the school calendar. All we have to do is make that simple administrative change, and the party disappears. And I've heard all of the arguments about why we can't change the school calendar, because why would we put reading week so late in the semester, so close to exams? Don't you know the students need that break in February when reading week rolls along? Well, guess what? You can have reading week in February if you stop holding an illegal party in March. But if you insist on continuing with the illegal party, I'm sorry, that has consequences. And the consequence of that is reading week gets moved from February to March. It's that simple. It's honest to goodness that easy. Instead, it seems to me that we just want to keep creating operational plans and shouting from the rooftops about how dangerous this party is, and we're going to incur the cost year after year after year. Like, what's the definition of insanity here, right? Again, I cast no judgment on this young lady who is clearly looking forward to the party that is going to happen next Tuesday. And it strikes me that she's not inclined to listen to this show and hear the messaging that we deliver through this show about not partying and the nuisance bylaws and all the tools that regional police are going to have at their disposal. They don't care. They don't care. They're not listening, or they don't care. And that's fine. But just to go back to yesterday's will not versus cannot, if we want to end the party, all we have to do is make a simple administrative change to reading week. But we won't do that because I think we like spending money, taxpayer resources, tying up emergency services, creating operational plans, talking about we're serious now. No, you're not. If you were serious, you would just demand that the school change reading week, and the problem's solved. But if you don't want to solve the problem, that's okay. Go beat your head against the wall next Tuesday. See if I care.
1, 2.
How about your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning? Number 1, the University of Waterloo has its next president and vice chancellor, and he's the first UW grad to hold the role. Dr. Bill Rosehart will begin his 5-year term on July the 1st. Rosehart has previously served as provost and vice president academic at the University of Guelph and dean of the Schulich School of Engineering at the University of Calgary. Dr. Vivek Goel, Waterloo's current president and vice chancellor, will complete his one-term tenure on June the 30th. Number 2, bud tenders at Canna Cabana Cannabis Store in Waterloo have recently voted to join UFCW Locals 175 and 633. Union reps say the group of cannabis retail workers came together to improve their workplace and address key issues, including better scheduling, fairer compensation, and fair treatment on the job. The announcement last Tuesday was the newest in a series of retail cannabis workers joining unions in Canada since legalization back in 2018. In 2020, workers at a Canna Cabana in Hamilton became the first retail cannabis location in Ontario to unionize with UFCW. In subsequent years, workers at Canna Cabana stores in Ottawa, Innisfil, Toronto, and more have joined the union, now also including Waterloo. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the women's prison in Kitchener is into its 3rd day of a lockdown. A notice from Correctional Service Canada says Grand Valley Institution was placed in lockdown on Sunday, and visits are not allowed until the lockdown is lifted. Number 4, a top Iranian security official has told U.S. President Donald Trump to be careful not to get eliminated himself. The remarks by Ali Larjani came after Trump threatened to attack Iran, quote, 20 times harder if Tehran stopped oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, where a fifth of the world's oil passes. We talked about that Strait of Hormuz on the show yesterday. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Prime Minister Mark Carney was a no-show when MPs squared off to debate Canada's approach to the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. Speaking in the House of Commons yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand said Canada condemns attacks on civilians and that international law must be respected by everyone.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
Do the math. That's your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning, the 10th of March. As I mentioned earlier, the phone lines to our radio program open the minute we begin the show every day. And our good buddy Gary, Farwell's Force member number 41, is with us. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm better than yesterday. This whole clock change thing, man, I don't know, yesterday and on Sunday, I was just been off for a couple of days, so I don't know. I'm sure most people go through it. But you know, the whole reading week thing, I agree, Mike. I've been, with transit 18 years, I try and do my best to book off St. Patty's Day because, I'm all about the kids wanting to, have some fun and stuff like that. But it's gotten pretty crazy, even downtown. I don't know what it's like in Kitchener, but downtown in Guelph, it's gotten pretty crazy. And then they get on the bus and, the green beer, and it can get pretty out of hand. And so I usually book a day off or a vacation in and around that time so I can avoid it. And also, by the sounds of your pickup bins, doesn't sound like it's going well, Mike.
That would be an understatement, Gary.
Man, oh man! Like the thing, I'm just curious. Did they not do a little pilot project kind of thing where try it out for a week, get all the kinks, get all this, that, and everything else? Because I don't know if we went through all those problems in Guelph, but it seems to be rolling pretty fine here. But it's a sad thing to hear that how all the bins are still out and the trucks are having issues. Oh my goodness.
I think we're working out the kinks. We're working out the kinks as we go along here, Gary.
Wow. Anyway, Mike, always a pleasure hearing your voice in the morning and listening to your show. But the reading week, I agree with you, bud. It can. They should change it, but like you say, there's reasons why they're probably not, I guess.
Oh yeah, I know the reason why they're not, because they don't care. That's all. No, there's no good reason why they're not changing it. Good to hear from you this morning, Gary. And at least in Guelph, the story you tell, because Gary drives transit for the city of Guelph, the students are going downtown and patronizing establishments in the core of the city and then hopping on buses to safely get back to their residence. Good for them. In Waterloo, they just take over the streets and do whatever the hell they want. And again, that's fine. I just in that conversation yesterday with the second-year student at Laurier, it just occurred to me that she cares not for the messaging that we're putting out. It either doesn't care about it or isn't hearing it, and fine, and is very much looking forward to the party because that's just what you do on March 17th at Laurier, and fine, honestly. But I just try to think of it from the other side and all of the talk. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we've got an operational plan. Who are we kidding here? I'll tell you this. You're not kidding me anymore. And I don't mean any disrespect to the folks that are doing a very difficult job trying to ensure people stay safe at this party. But anyway, you're not fooling me anymore. Sue sends an email to Mike at 570news.com and says, I've lived uptown for decades and the party does not bother me. If I wasn't so flippin' old, I'd join them. Let the kids have their fun. We're all going to be blown to smithereens anyway. Sue, that is a very pessimistic outlook. We're not. What do you mean? But listen, that's fine. If you want to party in the streets with the youngins and do whatever it is they do, then go right ahead. Get into that mass of humanity. The older I get, the less I want to be around crowds. Whoa, Linda is with us on the phone, but Linda's got some kind of wind tunnel going on.
Oh, I'll pull over here. I'm driving.
That's all right.
I'm always driving. So, I just wanted to comment. I disagree with you that it would be great to change it. I just want to, and I think something has to be done, but I just want to point out it's not quite as simple to change a date in the calendar as you might think.
What could possibly stand in the way?
Well, there's the unions. So there's the faculty union, for sure. Now,
but what's the faculty? Okay, sorry, I'll let you go.
There'd also be the food service union workers. Probably they also get that time off, and that's probably negotiated. It's all negotiated part of their union contracts, I'm sure. I don't know this for a fact, but
Linda,
speculating.
They could still have the time off. They could just have it off in March instead of February.
Yes, it would just mean that it takes some negotiation amongst multiple parties to make that change happen, and these doesn't mean it can't happen. I just want to point out that it's not quite as simple as just changing the date in the calendar and publishing a new calendar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm the president of that school, Ms. McClatchy, I'm looking at you. Here's my stamp. Reading week has changed. Deal with it. And again, because I said allegedly, we do not want this party, right? We talk about it all the time from a municipal, regional, emergency services perspective. We do not want this party, right? If we don't want the party, we change the date of reading week. And if anybody raises a ruckus about that, you say, listen, there are consequences for your actions. If you insist on having the party on St. Paddy's Day, then we are essentially removing St. Paddy's Day from the school calendar. Done. Because in reading week, everybody goes home. And then they can go home and have whatever kind of party they want at home. And if all of a sudden then the party date changes, we will be ready for that and adjust accordingly before it grows from 300 people to 30,000 people. You see, I'm telling you, this is easy, according to the dictator sitting here in the chair, apparently. It's the Mike Farwell Show. I would be that dictator on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Rob sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. He says, Mike, I know times are tough, but sweet Lord, I hope you're not dumpster diving, because I mentioned those green bins and big black garbage bins that Rosie and I noticed on our walk yesterday afternoon. And I thought, boy, it's getting late in the afternoon for this collection to still get finished today. How do you know those bins were still full, Rob asks. It's a very good question, Rob. I did not dumpster dive. However, I could tell by the way that the bins were carefully aligned at the edge of the road that no mechanical arm had come by and picked them up and set them back down again in some sort of haphazard fashion. They were too well aligned to have been touched by anything robotic, in my humble opinion. But I did not lift lids to look inside. I will grant you that. Along those same lines, a very interesting email I received this morning from Dawn, who writes to Mike at 570news.com. I was walking in the area of Elizabeth Ziegler's school yesterday, and much like you, I am a frugal type. So when I saw this dumpster out the back, I'm thinking, whoa, now is Dawn going to go do some dumpster diving herself? I don't know. But anyway, thought she'd check what was going into the dumpster as the work is underway there. And Dawn even sent pictures of what appeared to be perfectly good student desks in the dumpster as part of the work that's being done at the school. Again, it's a little bit difficult to tell from the picture, but I would hope that we are not, as we do the needed work on the structure, the physical structure of the building so it's safe for people to be inside. Surely the desks that were in use prior to the building essentially being condemned could be used again, couldn't they? Let me tell you a little story about a man who I admire greatly and probably someone from whom I get a little bit of my frugality, a.k.a. my cheapness. I like to use parsimonious because it makes me feel better. It's a fancy word for being cheap. But my father spent more than 3 decades in education. He was part of our Catholic school board here in the region as a teacher and then as a principal. And at one stage later in his career, he was at a school in Cambridge that was undergoing a renovation. And my dad, by the way, his father was a carpenter, and my dad worked construction when he was a kid. So he knew a little bit about the trade. And as this renovation was going on at the school he was principal of in Cambridge, you know, Dad was always on site, almost like a project manager. I'll bet you he annoyed the project manager on that job site. I will tell you that for free. But he's always just monitoring things, seeing what's going on. And when he saw wood being thrown into scrap that he thought was still good enough to be reused, the son of a gun would go and take it off the scrap pile himself, remove the nails himself, and find a way for that to be repurposed within the school or somewhere within the school board. It was not my dad's budget. It was not my dad's money. He had zero skin in the game personally, but he did not believe that anything worthwhile should be wasted. I hope what Dawn has found in the dumpsters at Elizabeth Ziegler is not a case of, well, these desks have been around for 3 years or whatever, and now that we're fixing the structure of the building, we're just going to get a whole bunch of new desks in here because, you know, that's kind of what we do. Is it still serving its purpose? Then maybe we could continue to use it and not spend more of those precious dollars from our school boards that we hear constantly are under financial stress. Could you be more like my dad is what I'm getting at in all of this. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then all of this talk about the water shortage in our community has led to questions being asked about a pipeline. How realistic is the possibility of one? We'll talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. As we continue to try to figure out what went wrong and who knew about it when it comes to our water supply here in the region, we hearken back to a bygone era. You go back decades in this community and you would have heard whispers, I think more than anything, about a Great Lakes pipeline connecting Waterloo Region to Lake Erie for a future water supply. But they really were whispers because we were doing such a good job of managing our groundwater system that the idea was, let's not take the easy way here. Let's not build the expensive and environmentally damaging pipeline through all of these communities between here and Lake Erie. Let's just keep managing, as well as we have been, the supply that we currently have. Those whispers grew a little bit louder over the years, but really, when you look at planning documents in this region, when it came to water, the idea was always to continue pushing off any projected timeline for a pipeline to Lake Erie. Are we now at the point where we best get to work on considering what those timelines might look like? I think Dave Anderson feels that way. He's a former public works director, spent decades in the municipal sector. He lives here locally and presented at Regional Council last week. He joins the show this morning. Dave, good morning.
Good morning.
How realistic is a pipeline from the region of Waterloo to Lake Erie?
Well, I think it's very realistic. I mean, it was part of provincial planning in the late 1960s and became a facility in the early 1970s. So it has been a vision for half a century, basically. So I think that is realistically, groundwater is a very finite resource. So you might want to have another source of water to supplement or augment that eventually. And I think that's where we're at.
You talk about that facility now 50 years old, and that would be the Nanticoke Water Complex. What is that complex? Like, what does that look like, and what part would that play in any future pipeline?
Well, the province back in those days had the vision to construct a intake out into the lake, several hundred meters out into the lake. It's about 21 feet, 7 meters in diameter, and bring that into 4 bays like a large reservoir. Both of those elements are sized for the ultimate facility. The treatment facility that exists there right now is rather small compared to the site. So again, with future planning, the site, the property is about 88 acres. And if you want to look at it, it looks mostly like an empty field. There's a few small buildings, large underground reservoir, and it services Townsend, Jarvis, Hagersville, the industrial park, and it also provides a raw water supply for the industrial park in Nanticoke.
So how would this region be able to connect to that complex and ultimately Lake Erie?
Well, in the early 2000s, when I worked in Haldimand County, the Ministry of the Environment questioned, after they had basically downloaded the facility to Haldimand County, they questioned the need for the large permit to take water. So an environmental study report was crafted. It took over 4 years to create. It involved discussions with all of the municipalities between the lake and as far as the city of Guelph that would be potentially users of the supply. So that environmental study report that was tabled, I guess, or finalized in March of 2006, was the justification for the large permit to take water and sets the stage to build that pipeline. Subsequently, an addendum to that report was created in 2023, which further, again, reinforced the need that was the long-term water supply. So that's the diligence, I guess, that Haldimand has undertaken over the years to ensure that resource is there for future users.
And that's what Haldeman has been doing here in the region. We seem to have been hell-bent, quite frankly, on pushing out the date of any possible need for a pipeline. And you've looked at some of these previous reports going back a decade or so here in the region where we continue to talk about, not needing to even consider a pipeline until 2050 or beyond.
Yes, when I met with the region, so there were two distinct dates in my mind. In 2005, we had a full-day meeting at the Nanticoke Water Treatment Facility. And then on August 24th, 2005, we did a tour of the facilities, and that included the regional personnel at that time. And at that time, they had indicated they needed a water supply from the lake in about 20 to 25 years. As time advanced, in 2007, that 2025 moved out to 2035, and then with the 2015 report, it moved out to beyond 2051. So in effect, as the population grew, the timeline to require a pipeline increased, which seemed diametrically opposed.
It certainly seems that way from where I'm sitting. And then to that end, Dave, does it surprise you at all that we find ourselves in the position we find ourselves here in the region right now?
I find it surprising, personally, because I think at the very least, knowing that you need to have that lake supply and maybe not knowing the real date, it would have been good to have the plan in place. Like Haldeman did, is like there is a permit to take water. If they had run Class EA and preliminary design to get the route location and pipe size, et cetera, that's, been a preparation that's in place and can be acted on. So as a parallel, in 2006, there was the report that justified the permit to take water, and then there was an addendum, which is supposed to occur in 10 years, so it was beyond 10 years, that further reinforced that. So that's what, should have been done in my mind. Create that process and have a design in your back pocket, so to speak. So when you had to act on it, then there's not the delay of the, the review, the public process, the class environmental assessment to determine the route and the environmental impacts and all those kind of things. That's done. So that in my mind should have been done and in the bank, so to speak.
Right, but it's not in the bank right now, correct?
That's what I understand. I don't believe it is. No.
Right. Okay, so we became aware of this problem here in the region in December. So give or take, we're 3 months into this. I have not yet heard anyone, Dave, say, let's flip the switch and get to work on the pipeline as a future source of water for this region. Let's just say we were to make that decision. What does such a project look like?
Well, if we started from scratch and did the EA and the design, et cetera, you got to realize that, when the previous report said, we might need it in 2035, if you needed it in 2035, you should have started the work in 2015. Like it's going to take that long to wade through the environmental process and then and the design and then actually do the construction. It's a 10-plus year project if it's fast-tracked. So it should have been acted on sooner.
What would it take to get it done now, since it hasn't been acted on sooner? I mean, I've heard billions of dollars and up to 20 years to get the project completed.
Yes, information I've seen in the last few weeks would suggest the pipeline's probably in the $2.5 billion range, but that isn't totally a region of Waterloo cost, I don't think, because there's a number of municipalities, the eastern half of Norfolk, Mississauga's a New Credit, Six Nations of the Grand River, Brant County, Brant Ford, region of Waterloo, and Guelph would all benefit. So that total cost would be shared. And I don't want to get too political, but the places to grow does indicate that we should be using the most effective or most efficient use of infrastructure, and that would tie in obviously with that. And I believe there should probably be significant provincial support to make the places to grow an actual reality.
And forgive my cynicism, please, but having worked in the municipal sector for as long as you did, perhaps you agree or disagree, but with all of those various communities involved and, stakeholders is the language we would use, gosh, that sounds like it'd take an awful lot of work just to get the planning part of this underway.
Yeah, it does take a lot of work, but you got to remember that when I pulled together the initial meetings in the early 2000s, I was basically the only staff person at Haldimand County involved in this. So it just requires initiative and that end game in sight to maybe make this happen. And I think we have to realize, too, that the biggest player in this would be the region for water taking. So if the region doesn't lead the charge, then nothing's going to happen.
And then what would that look like for the region, Dave? These water treatment plants that we have currently would just treat the water then coming in from Lake Erie, I suppose.
Well, I'm not a real water treatment expert, but my suggestion would be, or a water supply expert, but my suggestion would be, I have, quite a bit of specific experience with this project, but to optimize or maximize the usage of the available facilities to the greatest extent possible through a little bit of treatment on the water as it comes out of the lake to get rid of the fines and things like that, and then pump essentially raw water to the end users. I don't think treating water and then pumping it 80-plus kilometers would be that effective because it'd have to have some type of retreatment to some extent anyway. So from my perspective, it seems to make sense that if you move forward and considered pumping raw water that distance and then using your facilities, as I say, to the greatest extent possible, that would probably be the initial advancement of the project.
It is certainly interesting to get your perspective on the show this morning. Dave, thanks very much for making time for us. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Dave
Thank
Anderson.
you for calling.
You bet. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dave Anderson joins us. He is a former public works director, spent decades working in municipal government, including some work right here in the region. And you heard when in Haldimand County, hosted meetings with regional officials going back 20 years now to talk about what it would look like for the region to be connected to that Nanticoke water complex, which already has some of the infrastructure in place to draw water and the water taking permits from Lake Erie. As I said at the outset, this is something that has been whispered for some time. I've heard it much louder than a whisper in these last many months here in the region. And I will say, when it was being whispered all those decades ago, the understanding was that we were in such a sustainable place here in the region. We had planned so well. We managed our precious water resources so effectively that we would not need a pipeline. That was the whole point of doing what we did when it came to water. And I am no hydrogeologist, so please don't misunderstand, but this is the kind of language that I was hearing, and this was my understanding in this region going back decades. We do a great job managing our water because it's a groundwater system. We want that to continue being our sustainable source for water in this region. Therefore, we will continue to manage and maintain the system at this level forevermore because we don't want to be relying on a pipeline for the future water supply in this community. And you heard Dave make reference to those reports, and in reading his presentation to council, he documents all of this where initially, or at one point along the way, when those meetings were happening back in 2005, it was a 20-year time horizon for the region. So in and around this time, then it became 2035. And then as recently as 2015, the region was talking about not needing a pipeline to ensure its future water supply until beyond 2050. So that's what we were saying as recently as a decade ago. But now, of course, we realize we've got ourselves a pretty serious water supply issue. So what changed? How did we start managing it differently or mismanaging it to get to this point? And more to the point, what I'm interested in learning from you this morning is how you feel about the idea of a pipeline. I can understand the concern from environmentalists who insist that this is absolutely not the way to go. And that's what they've been insisting for decades already. And I fully respect that. I mean, we've gotten this far, but now we find ourselves in a pretty bad spot, right? And as we intend to grow to 1 million people, if we don't have enough water today, or if we have just enough for today, how will we have enough for roughly a 50% increase to our current population without building the pipeline? And we recognize that building that pipeline is environmentally destructive because there's a whole bunch of infrastructure through a whole bunch of land just to get there. And it also kind of, at least from where I'm sitting, makes it seem as though, oh, water? Well, there's an abundance of that. We'll just connect to Lake Erie and start sucking it in from there. Certainly nothing that's going to impact us in our lifetimes, but eventually, right? So it almost treats water like an infinite resource when it is, of course, not an infinite resource. Is it time to get working on a pipeline? Is that the answer to our water woes here in the region of Waterloo? Your thoughts always welcome on the show. Love to hear from you, and we'll take your calls after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I find it surprising, personally, because I think at the very least, knowing that you need to have that lake supply and maybe not knowing the real date, it would have been good to have the plan in place. Like Haldeman did, is like there is a permit to take water. If they had run Class EA and preliminary design to get the route location and pipe size, et cetera, that's been a preparation that's in place and can be acted on.
That is Dave Anderson, who's a former public works director, spent decades in municipal government, including some work here in the region. And when in Haldeman County as the director of public works, involved in conversations around the Nanticoke Water Complex, its connection to Lake Erie, and the possibility of connecting other communities along the line, which runs about 80 kilometers, including ours, to a pipeline that would draw water from Lake Erie for the future sustainability of our local water supply. Now, this is all part of the province's Places to Grow Act. This would not be something that the region is doing itself. The province would obviously be involved, and so too would a number of other communities in this immediate area between here in the region and Lake Erie, where this pipeline would originate. Is it the solution moving forward? I know for certain that it's been talked about, whispered about. Now it's probably more being talked about out loud, the idea of a pipeline to Lake Erie. We're talking multiple billions of dollars. I'll bet you it gets up around 4 or 5 billion by the time all is said and done. That's just my own guess. If we're talking 2 to 3 billion now, once you start putting shovels in the ground and getting to work, oh my goodness. And it's a long way off, even if we flipped the switch tomorrow. Just a reminder that the region is asking us to, or challenging us through what it calls its own wet challenge, to reduce the amount of water we use at home. Back in 2016, the average resident in the region of Waterloo would use 200 liters of water per day, and the region, through this wet challenge, would like to see us get down to 165 liters per day. So you can check your water bill, or you can give the region a call, and they'll show you how to calculate your water usage. And if you've got above average usage, the region will offer free in-house audits to check for leaks and find other water-saving opportunities, which means a lower water bill for you and, of course, more water conserved for the community. And that's something that hasn't been talked about a lot, and a few people have expressed frustration over. There has been no appeal issued by the region to conserve more. But you can learn more about this wet challenge and see if you want to bring your water usage down to 165 liters per day. See where you're at now by visiting regionofwaterloo.ca/conservation. Going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then we're going to stay on this theme because a business in Wilmot Township is certainly feeling the impacts of this water shortage. We'll tell you about the business and how it's feeling those impacts coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, we just had a conversation with a gentleman who's got deep municipal experience connected directly to the province's plan going back a half century now to potentially build a pipeline to Lake Erie that would supply a number of communities, including ours, with future water should the need arise. Some have said that need has absolutely arisen here, and it's time to get working on the pipeline. In the meantime, we continue to deal with the situation at hand, which in some areas is absolutely a crisis. We spoke to a woman in Wilmot Township last week who has noticed dramatic changes to her water system at home because the well sometimes runs dry. Now, admittedly, that's a dug well, not a drilled well, but nonetheless, she spoke very passionately about the daily activities or the daily anxiety that comes with not knowing if they have enough water to do this, that, or the other thing. They even keep jugs of water on hand because, again, that well runs dry. We are seeing a similar impact on a business that is local to Wilmot Township, and the president of that business, Clark Reek, joins our show this morning. Clark is the president of Linden Fish Hatcheries. Clark, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing all right, thank you. But more importantly, how about you? I'm sure much like a homeowner that's going through this stress, you are feeling the impacts of the water shortage.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing as a business that basically all of our different revenue streams and different parts of our businesses are relying on that water. This business has been here for several decades, since the 60s, as a fish farm, and so it's been established for quite a significant amount of time. And so we've certainly, our ears have perked up when it started to become a thing based on what we've seen, but also what we're hearing over the last 12 months over this, as this is progressing.
Let's talk about the evidence that you are seeing as a fish farm on site, Clark, because I have little doubt that doing the work that you do, you are constantly monitoring water. So what have you seen happen?
Yeah, it's true. So what we've seen over the last 2 years especially, and it wasn't until the last 6 months that we were starting to connect the dots. Last summer was exceptionally dry. We've had exceptionally dry years, and so we've typically chalked that up to just having seasonal issues. Thankfully, the property that we operate on, or the couple properties that we operate on, have been somewhat insulated, but especially the surrounding properties. We have neighbors that we keep really good relations with, and they've had 2 feet of drop in their ponds, or there's some that have up to 5 feet of drop in their usual lows are getting even lower. So when you establish new set standards that are going to be lower every single year consistently, then you start to take notice. And we've seen that over the last 2 years. Once again, we just chalk that up to it being a nature-based result. But now we're seeing that as it continues to progress that way, it is something that's related to an aquifer issue is what we're seeing. It's not dramatic for us at this point because we're implementing new technologies to utilize less water and also be adapting to the environment. But it is something that's a major concern for us moving forward.
What are you able to do to scale back on the water usage at the hatchery?
So for us, what we would do is typically, so we raise around 2.5 million rainbow trout a year. That ends up turning into around 8 million meals for the Canadian industry. We ship to every province in Canada. And so that turns into about a $32 million economic impact, and we have about 20 staff here that help that happen. And so what we're investing in now is utilizing filtration systems to be able to reuse that water, recycle that water, and make sure that we're able to be prepared for what's going to be, if it becomes an ongoing issue, then we want to be able to navigate that without it impacting our business, because the Canadian industry as a whole relies on us for the front end. We sell them as small fish. So these businesses, if they don't have that product, the impact is pretty dramatic. So we're investing pretty heavily in those redundancies at this point in time.
I'm glad you brought that up, Clark, because it's not as though we're talking today about a business owner in Wilmot Township who's saying, hey, it's all about my business and my business only. You look at the economic impact and the food that's being provided, the 8 million meals you just mentioned. I mean, my goodness, there's an impact that goes well beyond the region of Waterloo here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we take that very seriously. It's taken, the company's been in existence for 20 years here. And so for us to have built the legacy that we're building now, we need to invest heavily. But the challenge, I guess, that I've had with this experience or the situation is that, from what I understand, this isn't something that is really a surprise. It's maybe just something that wasn't planned for. And so my concern is that we're tax-paying in an expanding business. And so for us to be disadvantaged because of something that wasn't planned appropriately, that's a challenge for me.
We have learned in the past couple of weeks, when Regional Council met to discuss the idea of taking an additional 30 litres per second out of the system in Wilmot Township to support the remainder of the region, and this was supposed to be an ask on a temporary basis, we learned that this was actually already happening, which goes against, it contravenes a long-standing policy in the region. When you learned that, what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, it sounded to me like a reaction. Like it wasn't. This type of infrastructure, I do want to make sure that I represent this properly. It's not that the region is able to just drill a well. I don't know all their infrastructure-based constraints, but I do know that if you continue to increase demand by increasing housing development without increasing the supporting infrastructure, you have what we're experiencing today. 30 liters a second is about 40. It's about 40 garden hoses full blast all the time. So just so that you have a visual, because it's pretty hard to wrap your head around a metric like that. So if you have 40 garden hoses kind of wide open consistently at all times, that's what they're proposing, and it's a bit of a challenge, because now you're having other people that are disadvantaged. You have an industry and a home building industry that is at a standstill and significantly compromised because of not being able to issue building permits, and all those supporting industries, mostly because there wasn't a long-term plan set in place 7 or 8 years ago before these developments were authorized, right?
So what is your message as a business reliant upon this water? And again, not just for your business, but for all of those meals that are being provided every province in this country. What's your message to the region as you see what's happening with water?
I would suggest that at this point in time, we need to make sure that those are being disadvantaged are being cared for. I don't know that this issue is going to go away immediately. I think they're probably, for those that are having to increase their costs because of this challenge that's being created, there should be some responsibility for some of those costs. But then also, this needs to be taken very, very seriously for those that are currently disadvantaged, but also preventing that from being an ongoing issue. And we're, as a business, we're happy to be part of the solution, short-term, long-term. I'm not sure if there's any way that we can be part of the solution, but I would just say that I think it's unreasonable for businesses and organizations that are doing a good job and trying to do the best they can to contribute to their economies to be a victim of not having planning adequately set in place.
What's the worst case scenario for you, Clark?
Probably around a $4.5 to $5 million spend to be able to continue to operate the way that we are now. We'd have to implement significant technologies and upgrades and fairly substantial infrastructure spends to be able to sustain the current production that we're existing right now. And we have been for, like I said, since the 60s. There's 7,000 people a year that come to our fishing pond. And we're a part of the community that's established itself here, and we want to continue to be that. So we will do that, but the ripple effects of that financially on us as an organization are pretty substantial.
I really appreciate you making time for the show today, Clark. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.
Clark Reek is the president of Linden Fish Hatcheries in Wilmot Township. It's worth reminding you that meeting that happened a couple of weeks ago now, and credit to Wilmot Mayor Natasha Salonen for vocalizing her concern the way that she did during that meeting, because the meeting was presumably to discuss a temporary idea of drawing that additional 30 liters of water per second from Wilmot's supply into the rest of the region to help mitigate some of the concerns region-wide. And I love the visual that Clark was able to give us here, because these numbers, I mean, I'm new to all of them as they begin to be bandied about here in public conversation, but 40 garden hoses running full blast, just to give you a sense of what 30 liters per second looks like. But the point in me referencing this again is that meeting a couple of weeks ago where the idea is being put on the table, hey, can we temporarily be drawing this water from Wilmot to help out in the short term? And then what do we realize at that same meeting is, oh, we've already been doing that, and we've been doing it for more than 5 years. That's where Wilmot Mayor Natasha Salonen really perked up and said, wait a minute, there's a 1980 long-standing agreement here that this goes directly against. How on earth did this happen? And anyway, it speaks to me again about the carelessness. Quite frankly, that's the best word I think that's the kindest word I can use in this. The carelessness with which this file, and shouldn't there be the greatest care around the water file? I mean, what file that our region is responsible for is as important or more important than water? Like, come on with your coming on here. So they've been doing this for 6-7 years already, drawing this additional 30 liters per second out of Wilmot. And while they were at a meeting, presumably to ask for that permission, oops, it was realized they were already doing it in contravention of that policy. Good to get the perspective of Linden Fish Hatcheries. Been operating in our community for decades, would like to continue doing so. But as a business that is reliant upon the water and monitors the water very closely, this gives you a more personal account of the impact of what it is that we are dealing with. For many of us, I don't know about you, but we talk about it at home from time to time, and I have a difficult time wrapping my head around the idea that in this region that I have called home my entire life, we are suddenly saying, geez, we might not have enough water. That is, quite frankly, a frightening prospect. I'm sure we'll get it sorted out. In the meantime, we'll also have that independent third-party investigation into who gummed up and when. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just listening to the updates from the 570 News Center this morning and hearing our reporter Carl Hansky in Toronto, where shots have been fired at the U.S. consulate on University Avenue. It takes me back. And if you'll forgive the self-indulgence here, I can't help but, okay, this is going through my mind as I'm listening to Carl's reports. That very spot on University Avenue in Toronto was the scene of one of my most thrilling and yet most frightening experiences as a reporter in this business. And let me tell you, I was too young to know any better when this happened 25 plus years ago. I'll get to that story in just a moment if you'll indulge me in it. But it is that time of the day where we pause with all of the complaining and kvetching and talking about those people who act like jackwagons to remind you that not everyone is a jackwagon. We do this every morning at 10:20. And it was 1 year ago that Brandon Simmons survived a devastating car crash that left him paralyzed from the chest down and fighting for his life. The 18-year-old from Minnesota was given a 1% chance of survival and was told he'd never walk again. But Brandon refused to give up, and last week he was gifted with the basketball experience of a lifetime, sitting courtside as his Minnesota Timberwolves beat our Toronto Raptors. The experience was made possible by a nonprofit group that grants sports-themed dreams to children and young adults facing life-altering conditions. And wouldn't you know, but Shaquille O'Neal himself was on hand to surprise Brandon with his gift.
I didn't know you was walking. Kind of brings a tear to my eye, but I don't cry in public. I'm happy for you, and I just want to urge you to continue to listen to your mom and your dad. Make sure you always listen to that beautiful grandmother. I wish my grandmother was still here. She gave me so much knowledge. So you have an army behind you, and we love you and we support you, and anything we can do, we're just a phone call away.
There you go, Shaquille O'Neal, just a phone call away. And by the way, listen to your grandmother. Brandon had gone to a basketball fantasy camp years ago run by Shaq. And as he began his recovery from the car crash, the first thing he wanted to do was shoot a basketball. He says anything is possible if you just work hard enough.
You keep going, you're going to be rewarded for it. Keep going. Even in basketball, you work out, you keep working, you keep pushing, you're going to get rewarded. That's how, he got to the NBA. He kept pushing, he kept working, got rewarded being in the NBA. I keep pushing in therapy every day, got rewarded to walk again.
Yeah, and Brandon is using a walker now, but he is on his feet, and he's got a whole team behind him for his recovery, including the one and only Shaq. So there is your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon, and if you know someone who is not, we are happy to share their story as well. Local always wins. You can reach me via email, mike@570news.com, and maybe we'll share a story of somebody that you know who is absolutely not a jackwagon. So Carl Hansky, our reporter on the streets of Toronto, University Avenue, outside the U.S. consulate where shots were fired earlier today. And it takes me back. I can't help but think back to when I was in that very spot. It's across from the courthouse in Toronto on University Avenue, not far from City Hall if you come out through the back. And I was a reporter at a radio station in Toronto, early part of this century. Gosh, you get old when you start talking like this, don't you? You get old in a hurry in this business. Anyway, I was a young lad working as a reporter at this radio station. And as a reporter, I carried a pager. That's right, kids. Cell phones weren't really a thing. Okay, so if something was going on outside of my usual working hours, I would get paged. And so I did. It was a Thursday night. I remember this vividly. I had a basement apartment in Scarborough, not far from the Toronto Zoo. That's how far east in Toronto I was. I get the page. It was a Thursday night. I was watching ER. I remember this for whatever reason. And it's like, hey, they're firebombing. Well, so you get the page, you call in, because landlines, right? And, hey, they're firebombing the U.S. consulate on University Avenue downtown. Can you get down there? This was during the Yugoslav wars, and there was conflict that the U.S. was obviously involved in. And so, okay. So I don't even really process this. I'm like, yes, I'm on my way. I hop in my car. And I always remember this, too. It used to take me about an hour and a half during the day to get from my Scarborough apartment to City Hall where I was stationed in Toronto. It took me about 25 minutes to get down there on this particular night. So a third of the time, because no traffic ER used to come on at what, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock? Anyway, blah, blah, in the car, across the 401, down the DVP, down to downtown Toronto. And then all of a sudden there I was on University Avenue outside the U.S. consulate where people were throwing Molotov cocktails at the consulate. And I'm standing in the middle of all of this. I'm like, wait a minute. How in HE double hockey sticks did I end up here? And what am I doing? It was the adrenaline was running for sure. And I would love to have saved the audio from those reports that I filed for the radio station, because if there was any urgency in my voice, it was probably from sheer panic being in the midst of that. But I stood right there on University Avenue as these Molotov cocktails were being hurled over my head at the consulate. I didn't stay there all that long. Got a little bit to a little bit safer of a place to report from. But there, I was thinking of that as I'm listening to Carl Hansky tell his stories from University Avenue in Toronto today. One of the most thrilling and probably dumbest things I have been involved in over the years in this business. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then, are you rolling up the rim? Are you winning? Statistically, we might be able to give you a better chance. I'll tell you how. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is once again that time of year. No, not the time as winter and spring begin their annual battle for control of our days of weather. No, not that time of year where we prepare, if we are of a certain religious denomination, for the coming of Easter and the Lenten period of sacrifice. Although both of those things are happening, it's also the time of year when that big coffee chain starts its roll up the rim to win contest again. And yes, the ability to roll up those rims is back. And what has also become a bit of a tradition on this show over the last number of years is our conversation with a statistician from the University of Waterloo who several years ago found a way to improve his odds of winning in that contest. Michael Wallace is said statistician and associate professor of statistics and actuarial science at UW, and he joins us this morning for a chat. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I picked up one of those long-running colds that won't go away, but hopefully my voice is okay.
It sounds perfect, thank you. And you're not the only one. I mean, a number of people have been dealing with this lately, so I hope
it's something going around for sure.
I hope it's a speedy recovery for you. Thanks for bearing with us today. So when this first started for you, like when did the idea first pop into your head, Michael, that maybe, just maybe, you could find a way to improve odds of winning the roll-up contest at Tim Hortons?
Yeah, so this goes all the way back actually to 2020, back when we were first encountering this thing called COVID. And that year, Tim's made this big change where they moved away from those physical cups that we all knew and love, and they moved the game onto the app. So instead of rolling up physical cups, you'd earn what they called these digital rolls, and you'd roll those in the app instead. And so those years ago when they changed those rules, I got interested because as a statistician, when you study games of chance, there's always interesting differences between physical games, like a physical roll of a cup, compared to digital games when things get a little bit more complicated because computers get involved.
So what were you able to learn all those years ago?
So all those years ago, I was studying the rules, and I always say to people, if you're playing these games, read the rules. And I learned that the digital version of the game was very different to the cups because you were, in a sense, competing directly with other players. So back then, and it is still the same to some extent now, when you play your digital entries in the Tim Hortons app, you're actually competing with other players, and you're trying to be the first person to make that roll at a certain time. So each prize is allocated a winning time, and you're trying to be the first person to play during that time. Now, all those years ago, I had this idea that maybe if I played at, say, 3 a.m. when, sensible people are asleep and only strange people like me are awake trying to win coffee, that might actually be successful. And that year it was. I won about 98% of the time. I won a lot of donuts, a lot of coffee. But in the years since, Tim's and I have had this little back and forth as they keep changing the rules and I keep changing my strategy to land us where we are today.
Is this game of cat and mouse, do you think how does Tim's feel about it? Have they talked to you at all? Like, hey, stop winning our contest 98% of the time?
I think that first year they were a little concerned at first that I'd somehow done something maybe against the rules, but everything I do is within bounds. I always stress that. And I think, if anything, they kind of enjoy some of the attention. And as I've mentioned before, I use this stuff in my classes. So when I'm teaching my students, I use examples from these games, which my students really engage in. And I know that Tim's enjoyed the fact that I'm bringing something like this game, into an educational setting as well. So they've generally been great about it.
Out of curiosity, Michael, what does one do with all of that coffee and all of those donuts?
It depends. Well, but those years ago, I was able to donate them to a local charity for people experiencing homelessness. So generally speaking, I try and give them away as much as possible. I personally just can't eat that many donuts. And I think if I drank that much coffee, it would be extremely bad for my health. But usually I find a way to give it away either to charities or to friends or families. My friends have learned that around this time of year, if they're going to Tim's, to send me a message and say, hey, do you have any free coffees we can use? And usually I can help them out.
Okay, so as we're underway for another year with the annual contest, have you seen any patterns emerge this year?
Yeah, so an interesting change, one of the biggest changes actually in the rules happened last year, and they've kept the same rules this year, which is when we talk about what time of day to play, Tim's have actually now changed the distribution of the prizes, so there's fewer prizes available in the middle of the night. So if you do try what I used to do, which was play at, say, 3, 4 a.m., you're going to be having less competition from other players, but there's also going to be fewer prizes available. So last year, seeing this change, I gathered up a lot of entries and I did some experiments. And the new kind of sweet spot that I've identified is to look at the weekends and ask yourself, how do people behave differently at weekends versus the weekdays? And what this leads to is playing at around 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday, if you're up that early. That seems to be the sweet spot this year. If you play around that 8:30 a.m. time, you're getting some of the benefit of the weekday rush, like Monday to Friday, people going into work and buying a lot of coffee then, but it's a little bit slower at the weekend at that time. And I found that if I played around that time, I could win about 1 in 3 times with those digital rolls, which is actually about twice the odds you get playing on those physical cups, where the odds there are only about 1 in 6.
So just to make sure I understand correctly as well, you base your playtime on things that are available, like clearly spelled out in the rules of the contest. Like, you know that there are a certain number of prizes being given away at certain times of day.
Exactly, yes. I don't know the exact numbers, but if you dig into the rules, and they've now gotten, they get more and more complicated every year. I don't want to claim because of me, but I think it's definitely happening at the same time. But if you look at the rules now, there's actually quite complicated mathematical equations that describe the distribution of the prizes. So if you go and read those rules, you'll see that there's equations and algebra and things raised to powers and stuff. It's all quite complicated. But this information is out there, and they even publish on their website the number of prizes they're giving away. And so these were other data I could use to track the prizes as they're being won in real time. And that also allows me to learn about when people are playing, when people are winning, and that all feeds into my strategy.
How do you approach your work? Because I have to guess, Michael, as a statistician, it's not, I mean, you have to do some trial and error, but it's an educated trial, I guess. You're not just randomly trying out different times of the day.
No, exactly. So what I do is I gather up a lot of rolls. So last year, I actually bought, strangely enough, quite a lot of Tim Horton soup because they were giving away these digital entries if you bought soup in the grocery store. So I had a cupboard in my kitchen completely full of soup. I actually, genuinely, I finished the last tin of soup from last year's contest last week. But with all of those entries, I then had this really large sample that I could use. And so I would make some educated guesses, as you said. So I tried playing in the middle of the night like I used to play, and that did not work at all. And then I tried playing at sort of different little times, like 3 or 6 hour intervals. And as you say, it's trial and error. It's just a scientific method, as I do in my sort of like, say, my real job outside of winning coffee. And you can apply all those ideas to this type of problem. And again, that's what I tell my students. I use this example to them. I tell them it's a little bit silly, but you can apply the methods we use as statisticians and as scientists in general to almost anything in your everyday life, whether it's a real scientific experiment or just trying to get some extra donuts.
So I remember this contest. I can recall this contest happening for as long as I can remember, Michael. Again, going back to the physical rims that you would roll up. Was it that change to the digital roll that became something that was too irresistible for you to try to solve?
Absolutely. I mean, I always loved the game since I came to Canada in 2013. When I heard about the Roll of the Rim contest, I was hooked. I've always loved these games of chance and these instant win promotions. And what was interesting is that with the physical cups, you have no strategy. There's nothing you can really do. Like some people claim you're more likely to win on the bigger cups or the smaller cups, and people have researched that, and there's no data to suggest that. So if you're playing on the physical cups, you just go in, you get your drink, you have a 1 in 6 chance, and there's nothing you can really do beyond that. But as soon as it moved to this digital platform, that's when I got interested, because I thought about this from my perspective as a statistician, thinking, well, if I was working for Tim's, how would I have designed this game? And I spotted some things that I thought that maybe they might not have considered. And when I tested out those ideas, it turned out that that was a correct belief. So that was the kind of overall process. But if you see games like this, when they're on a physical platform like a cup, you probably can't do much. But when it moves to a digital platform, that's when I get interested, and that's when you can potentially find a little bit of an advantage.
Over the years, more coffee than you could possibly drink, more donuts than you actually needed. I love that you were able to give many of these away and support some local organizations in the process. But I mean, come on, Michael, how many barbecues, cars, yachts, I don't know what else is available. How many of those have you won?
Well, let's just say zero. I actually had my biggest ever win just recently. You got to hold on to your hats for this. I won a $25 Tim Hortons gift card.
Yes, guy.
So even more coffee. But this is the thing. Again, if you go and look at the rules, some people will win those big prizes. But if I was going into this contest hoping to win those, I would be almost certainly disappointed. Like a little statistic is, if you're playing on the physical cups, there are around 15 million prizes available on the cups. Of those 15 million, fewer than 100 are anything other than coffee or donuts. So even if you win a prize on the cup, there's like a 99.99% chance that prize is just going to be a coffee or a donut. So you might be that, 1 in a million player who wins one of these cars or wins one of these barges, I think they have available this year. But if you do, that's great. You're very lucky. You can fractionally increase your chances of winning those using my strategies. But in practice, disappointing as it may be, you're probably just going to win a coffee or a donut. But hey, a free coffee, free donut, nothing to sniff at.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'll take a free anything, anytime. So just so we leave folks with the underlying message here from what you've learned through your work, and we'll benefit from that. Weekend mornings around 8:30, the best time for us to play to increase our odds of winning?
That's what I found so far, yeah. That seems to be the sweet spot. If you can get up a little bit earlier on a Saturday, or if you're up already, maybe going to the shops, that seems to be the best spot that I've been able to find. We will encourage people to give it a shot. And in the meantime, maybe you can use some of that $25 gift card to get more of that soup, chicken noodle perhaps, to nurse that cold you're dealing with. Absolutely. I may indeed do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for making time for the show again. And stay well. I look forward to our next chat.
Always. Speak to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Michael Wallace is an associate professor of statistics and actuarial science at the University of Waterloo. Go back 6 years now to when the annual Roll Up the Rim contest at Tim's went digital. And for a statistician, it was irresistible. And I'm just going to remind you of this. First, let me say a couple of things here, if you don't mind. It is a talk show, after all. I'm sick and ding-dang tired of the people whizzing all over the big. I know it's not It's owned by Restaurant Brands International and blah, 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 blah. But there is nothing wrong. Like, if you turn your nose down at a Tim Hortons coffee, well, I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of time for that. Just a fine cup of coffee. And it's as Canadian as anything I can think of. Going to a hockey rink, having a Tim Hortons cup of coffee, or just hitting up that drive-thru, whatever. I'm not trying to show, they don't need my help. But anyway, that's point number one. Point number two is, I know, you want the big prize, right? That's what's attractive. That's what's sexy in these contests. But there's an old saying for people kind of like me that may have spent some time sitting at card tables or playing games in casinos. I've always enjoyed wagering. And the saying goes like this: a small win is better than a big loss. So you may not be winning cars or barges or even barbecues. I don't know what else is available on the contest this year. Because I bring, as much as I say, don't turn your nose down at a Tim Hortons coffee, I bring a coffee every day because I'm cheap. I bring my own. And I like the coffee I drink. But anyway, small win, better than a big loss. So if you just win a coffee or a donut or a $25 gift card, hey, it's better than a big loss, isn't it? I kind of hate to break this to you because, as I said, I don't even get the chance to play this contest because I bring a coffee with me every day to work. So I don't go very often. But I did have the opportunity over the weekend to have my first roll-up opportunity. And let's just say it went pretty well. I wonder how well it's going for you this year. Because when I bragged about how well it's going for me, somebody said, I'm 0 for 14 so far. 0 for. I am not 0 for at all. How are you doing on the Roll Up the Rim contest this year? And maybe, like, what's the biggest prize that you've won? It's a 0.1% chance of getting one of the big prizes, according to what we just heard from Michael Wallace from the University of Waterloo. 99.99% of the time, you're getting a coffee or a donut. But 60% of the time, it works every time. What's the biggest prize you have won? And how are you doing this year? Are you 0 for? Are you 3 for 3? How is your roll-up experience going this year at Tim's? I'll tell you how mine is going, and we'll get your stories too as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Playing at around 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday, if you're up that early, that seems to be the sweet spot this year. If you play around that 8:30 a.m. time, you're getting some of the benefit of weekday rush, like Monday to Friday, people going into work and buying a lot of coffee then, but it's a little bit slower at the weekend at that time. And I found that if I played around that time, I could win about 1 in 3 times with those digital rolls, which is actually about twice the odds you get playing on those physical cups, where the odds there are only about 1 in 6.
That is Michael Wallace, an associate professor of statistics and actuarial science at the University of Waterloo. Many years ago, when Tim Hortons took its annual Roll Up the Rim to Win contest and made it digital, calling it just the Roll Up, where you'd get that digital entry, Michael could not resist diving deeply into the rules to find out how this contest works and how he might be able to apply statistics to it to improve his odds of winning. And he was remarkably successful in the early years, winning about 98% of the time. He's now down to about 1 in 3. Still not a bad average. It'll get you in the Hall of Fame if you're a baseball player. And it seems that the sweet spot this year is around 8:30 on weekend mornings. If you're up that early, Michael Wallace says. I would like to meet those who are not up at 8:30 on a weekend morning. That's some kind of life. I like that life. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. How are you doing on the contest this year? Are you 0 for? Are you 3 for 3, 1 for 3? What? We all keep track. I see these things get posted all the time. And that's how I found out that somebody I know, or who at least follows our work in the Ontario Hockey League, is a big fat 0 for 14 so far this year in the contest. Because when we were on the road this weekend in Windsor, it's funny, things were different at the WFCU Center. The media room was serving up some different food, just some pizza. I shouldn't say just, but they usually have warm trays of different things. They get some veggie and some potato and some source of protein, whatever. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm not complaining. Give me a cup of coffee, a slice of pizza. I'm a happy boy as I get ready for a game, and that's what we got. But the coffee urn in Windsor is usually just one of those big brown canisters. I presume they brew it somewhere in the building. But in the case of this past weekend, they had those Tim Hortons to-go boxes that you just, pour a cup out of. And, of course, those boxes come with their own cups already as part of it. And so I got a free roll-up-the-rim-to-win cup, and I filled it with Tim Hortons coffee, which you should never turn your nose down to. I enjoyed my cup of coffee, and I rolled up my rim, and I won. I am 1 for 1. I might retire from the roll-up contest this year because I am 1 for 1 to start. Got me a donut, which I think you're still allowed to use for a muffin, and I love me a Tim Hortons muffin. In fact, I was craving a Tim Hortons muffin so badly the other day. On the way to work, I'm like, I need a pastry to go with my coffee. I need something baked to go with my coffee. So I pulled into the Tim's down the street here, attached to the gas station on Ira Needles on my way to work. But the lineup in the drive-thru was so long, I'm like, to heck with this. I just did a UE, left that parking lot right away. That's the kind of weirdo I am. I want my muffin, right? Probably one of those Nutella Dream ones. Those are good. But do I want to wait that long at 6 o'clock in the morning? No. What are all you doing out there at 6 o'clock in the morning? Get out of my drive-thru lane. Anyway, I'm 1 for 1 on Roll Up the Rim to win. And I might just quit while I'm ahead this year. Ahead for you is an update from the 570 News Center. And then Airways Transit is gone. How are we filling that gap for people that want to get to Pearson Airport for travel? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Remember last week when Airways Transit all of a sudden, and I do mean all of a sudden, ceased operations more than a half century, 51 years to be exact, for Airways Transit, shuttling people from their homes here in the region and elsewhere to their flights at Pearson International Airport in Toronto. But just like that, the business ceased to exist as it just wasn't viable anymore. But as you probably also know, Airways Transit was never the only way to get from here to there if there was Pearson International Airport. JIT Transport operates right here in the region of Waterloo, and the director of marketing there is Bob Hawk, who joins the show this morning. Bob, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you very much for making the time. Out of curiosity, is Airway Transit's loss JIT Transport's gain?
Absolutely. I would definitely say so. It is definitely a sad story that Airways Transit ceased operations, but we have been seeing an incredible amount of phone calls that are coming in, so it's definitely a win for us.
Tell me a little bit more about the JIT transport business. I know it operates here in the region, but I don't know if Airways Transit, it's kind of like Kleenex, maybe had the brand name, but tell me a little more about JIT Transport.
Absolutely. So JIT Transport was founded by Mr. Gökçe back in 2016. So this is our 10th year anniversary, actually. Mr. Gökçe himself used to be a professor at the University of Waterloo, but then he got into entrepreneurship. And one day one of his customers said that, hey, you may want to look into transportation businesses. And that's how we actually started. And here we are 10 years later.
So 10 years later for you, it was 51 years, as we mentioned, for Airways Transit. What's the airport shuttle business like, Bob?
It's definitely, I don't want to call it a nightmare, but it definitely happens within the nighttime a lot. So you don't have time to see any nightmares because you'll be driving. But absolutely, the airport transportation business is definitely not an easy one. But with everything in the society that we live in, you have to keep getting the newer technology, the newer methods of everything, basically. just like Airways Transit used to do business, doing multiple stops with larger vehicles, especially after COVID, this type of service was slowly not being chosen by customers because people got used to private vehicles. People got used to cleaner vehicles, especially after COVID. Everybody was a little bit more scared due to the virus. So just like with everything, you have to keep changing your ways to adapt to what people want and what their needs are. And so if you don't adapt, it won't be good for you. Same thing with us. Right now, the biggest transportation options are there, which are services like Uber. And one of the things that they did was they got people used to getting private vehicles on demand. So this is the trajectory of public transportation was. So we kind of looked into that and we decided that, hey, look, we got to do this more so on the private side rather than doing getting a big bus and doing multiple stops. So I think that's where Airways Transit might have went wrong.
I know that JIT Transport is based here in the region, Bob. How large is your geographic area or territory that you'd pick up customers from and get them to Pearson International Airport?
So generally, we do either airport transportation or long-distance rides. So anywhere starting from Pearson to the west of Ontario, depending on where you live, we can provide you with a quote. So we had customers that are coming from Michigan, and we picked them up in Windsor, taking them to Stratford Festival. Or we had people who had doctor's appointments in Toronto, so we provided service in regards to that. So anywhere generally west of Pearson. But sometimes if you do, this is a very rare case, but sometimes if you do need to go to like Oshawa or Kingston, we can still provide a quote, which won't be the best quote out there because it's like to the east, which is not our area, but basically anywhere west of Pearson Airport.
What does the absence now of Airways Transit mean for the industry, Bob?
Well, I wouldn't really say anything that's significant for the industry, but the thing is, especially with service businesses, for example, let's say you have John the plumber that you have been going to, that's your guy who has been helping you with your plumbing needs for 20 years. You know John, John knows you, John knows every infrastructure about your house, every material that has been used, and he just provides the best service. And all of a sudden, John just sells his company and moves to Florida. So now you have to go through the hassle of finding a new plumber that you can trust, that knows about your property, that knows about all the materials, and that is not going to mess up your plumbing situation. So it's the same thing, right? You provide a service here, and you've been using your guy for the past 51 years, and now you're going to go through the hassle of trying to find someone who's trustable, trying to find someone who's always going to provide, always going to show up, trying to find someone who's going to be safe and trained. So it's not sure about the market, but definitely their customer base, especially the elderly folks, they are probably in a stressful situation at the moment trying to find an alternative.
We mentioned at the outset that this was a very sudden announcement, and all of a sudden operations at Airways Transit were ceased. Are you seeing an increase in customer requests at JIT Transport?
I definitely do, yes. So one of the things that people do, that's normal. If they lose a service, they just go online and search up, hey, show me airport transportation in Kitchener-Waterloo, and then we generally pop up with various other companies, and we have been getting more calls every day. I'm not sure about their sudden closure, but I myself did make a visit to Airways Transit's office here in Waterloo, and I spoke with their dispatch people over there. I don't know if you saw the post on the Reddit on what had happened internally. So it has been going since COVID, the internal situation and what happened. So it definitely does feel like it's a sudden thing, but it has been slowly making its way there. And it's that situation, honestly. It's the first time I heard about it, I was in shock. I was in kind of like mixed feelings because obviously 51 years serving this area, serving our local fellow Canadians here, it's definitely a big thing. So the loss is there and we feel it. But within the business perspective, we do feel good because we have been getting more calls and more customers, and we are looking to provide our fellow Kitchener-Waterloo people here.
Bob, I appreciate your time on the show today, and I wish you continued success at JIT Transport. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it too. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bob Hawk is the marketing director at JIT Transport based in the region. They'll give you that door-to-door service to Pearson Airport or Hamilton or Billy Bishop or even YKF right here in the region, our region of Waterloo International Airport. I feel like I am the JIT Transport of my friend group. And I should say friend, not friends, because it's only the one guy. But my best buddy, he's constantly on the move, going this place, that place. And the number of times I have been his personal chauffeur, either to or from the airport, I've lost track of. But that's okay. That's what friends do, right? Even if it means driving through that nightmarish Toronto traffic. It's an interesting space to be operating in, the airport transportation space. First of all, I know that here in the region, there is as great an emphasis as we can place on getting people to fly out of YKF. And we know how much easier it is. The challenge becomes the destinations are not as wide-ranging, right? You can only get to so many places from YKF. But from anybody that's ever flown it, I've heard nothing but glowing reviews of the inexpensive parking, certainly compared to Pearson and elsewhere, the ease with which you move through customs and whatnot, and it's not an overwhelming experience, as I personally find Pearson Airport to be. The other thing that is happening in the transportation space, of course, as I'm sure you've heard, is that Air Canada shuttle, that if you're flying Air Canada out of Pearson, they'll pick you up at our region of Waterloo International Airport in their air-conditioned coach, and down you go. And that's a way to take advantage of local transportation. You just get to the region of Waterloo International Airport, you hop on that bus, and they take you to Pearson for your Air Canada flight. I've heard from folks that have used that and say it's terrific. Here's the thing when it comes to this space, the airport transportation space, that JIT Transport here in the region is obviously still operating in, has been for a decade now. It is my understanding, and I've been reading more about this recently, and you'll see it happening more commonly in the U.S. right now. Texas is the kind of trailblazer in all of this, but other states are starting to come on board. And again, it is my understanding that the ultimate goal would be autonomous vehicles picking you up and taking you to the airport. Presumably, this would also mean then autonomous vehicles become your cab or your Uber or whatever the case may be. Autonomous vehicles are dropping off your Amazon packages. I don't know. Dropping off your groceries when you order online. But I'll just stick to the topic, and that is transportation to and from an airport. In the United States, this is gaining more and more traction. And the idea generally is that down the road, no pun intended, there will be autonomous vehicles taking us from our homes to the airport where we wish to travel from. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not trying to whiz on the technology. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy over here, but if that vehicle shows up at my house without a driver in the driver's seat, forget about it. I am not getting in that car come heck or high water. You're just not going to get me in it. I'm sorry. Oh, my beloved, you can go on the trip by yourself, because I'm not getting into a car that does not have a driver. But I just wonder about the industry that is currently still doing this work with real people doing the driving. What the feeling is in that space, knowing that ultimately the idea is that these autonomous vehicles are going to be getting us from point A to point B. I'm not ready for it. I'm just not. And so, like I said, that vehicle shows up at my place and there's nobody in the driver's seat. Cool. However you got here, car that I can't talk to anybody in, you can just go back to where you came from, because not a chance in heck. Not a chance in heck I'm getting into that car. Speaking of Billy Bishop Airport, one of the destinations that JIT will take you to. Did you hear what Ontario Premier Doug Ford had to say about Billy Bishop Airport and the people living on Toronto's island? Oh, let me tell you, because Billy Bishop we call the island airport in Toronto, right? We'll get into that and take calls from you coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
You provide a service here and you've been using your guide for the past 51 years. And now you're going to go through the hassle of trying to find someone who's trustable, trying to find someone who's always going to provide, always going to show up, trying to find someone who's going to be safe and trained. So not sure about the market, but definitely their customer base, especially the elderly folks, they are probably in a stressful situation at the moment trying to find an alternative.
That is Bob Hawk, who's the Director of Marketing at JIT, Just In Time Transport, operating here in the region of Waterloo and filling some of those gaps in the airport transportation industry since Airways Transit closed its doors, ceased operation a little more than a week ago. Let's get to the phones here from you. Carmen, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I have been traveling by Airway Transit for the last 15 years. I've been to England 5 times. And every time I take that, it was so dependable and great. What am I going to do now?
Well, you could try JIT Transport.
Okay, so is there a phone number for him?
You know what? I can probably find that for you in just half a moment, Carmen, because that's what I'm here to do. I want to make your life easy.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
226.
Okay.
666.
Okay.
2407.
2407?
That's right.
All right.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day. That's what we do here. We make connections, okay? We help you out. I like to tease my buddy Mark, who's a regular caller to this show. What am I, your Google? Happy to be that. But I just happen to have JIT's number right in front of me. So there you go. Mike, Farwell's Force member number 37. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I was very saddened to hear that Airways Transit had ceased operations. As I've used them many times over the years, I found them so convenient, et cetera, and so forth. Now that I'm living in Bruce County, there's a similar service. It's called Red Carpet, which will drive you to London, Toronto, or Detroit. And I think what is needed in the Kitchener area is we have GO trains, right? And we have VIA trains. We need them to start stopping at Pearson Airport. They have one at Pierre Elliott Trudeau VIA station and a metro station at...
well, but you can just take it, Mike, just take it to Union now, and then you take that up train that takes you right up to the airport from Union Station.
Yeah, well...
You're not going to build... You're a business guy. You're not going to put new track in there. You're just going to... Right? Like, just go to Union and take the Up Express.
Yeah, Mike, that's a bit of a out-of-the-way thing there. But I think the other thing that's needed is maybe, like you, I try to avoid Toronto Airport if I can at all costs, because I either go through London, Kitchener, Buffalo, or Detroit, because it's just too expensive. You walk 3 miles to your gate, and you walk when you deplane, you have to walk another 3 miles to customs. It's not convenient anymore. I would like to see some new track laid, like every other modern airport. In Chicago O'Hare, they have their blue line going out there. We need to have some adequate public transit. That's my thought.
No, I get you, Mike, and I don't disagree with that on the surface. But again, it does exist. Like, we're not going to just connect Kitchener VIA or Kitchener GO directly to the airport. It's just you switch at Union and you get on the Up Express. And I've heard people drive to the airport and use the Up Express to get downtown for Blue Jays games and presumably Leafs games too, if anybody still goes to Leafs games. But I don't think we need new infrastructure. We already have it. You just have to hop off at Union and get on the other train. So Anyway, I mentioned Billy Bishop Airport is one of the airports that JIT Transport will get you to. And Doug Ford, boy, was he fired up yesterday talking about his new convention center and an expansion of Billy Bishop Airport. And heaven forbid you live on the island in Toronto. Here's what the Premier had to say.
Okay, so I don't want to be rude, folks. There's 260 squatters on the island that are paying $1 a year for 99 years. Wouldn't everyone in this room, wouldn't those hardworking nurses that bust their back off want $1 a year for their own little personal island that no one touches? Folks, game's over. No more $1 a year. I guess it's in a contract. You're getting $1 a year. But guess what? We aren't going to worry about the 1%ers that affect the 99% of the rest of the population. We're going to move forward with the island airport with cooperation with the federal government. And I know Mayor Chow wants to expand it. She may disagree with the jets, but those jets are coming in there one way or another. You know, we did a poll. 70% of the people want that island airport expanded. Simple as that. We're listening to the people.
That's what we're going to do. Get those squatters off that island. Oh, Premier Ford. John, Farwell's Force, member number 67. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. I just want to discuss a little bit about what the other Mike was saying about the up service. I've only taken it once, and it was just before Christmas. It is fabulous. It's the best thing from Union Station to Toronto. It is great. And like Mike, I live up here in Bruce County. We've just lost the TOK. I'm not sure what that stands for, but the Talk bus service, which took a lot of people to Toronto. And right now, Facebook is filled with a ton of people from Owen Elgin, Ripley, Tiverton, Kincardine, looking for rides back from the Toronto KW area constantly. So maybe JIT wants to expand his business up in this area. Just a thought, but Mike, I love the up service. It was just fantastic.
Love to hear it, John. Thanks so much. I love Point Clark, Kincardine, Bruce County checking in. My heart is full. I love the Bruce, and the fact that they're listening to the show, I might as well retire. I think I just made it. It's the Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We have had a long-standing partnership on this show with the Canadian Mental Health Association of Waterloo Wellington. It is intentional because it's important that we normalize conversations around our mental health. We always know what to do when you have a broken leg, right? There is a physical health, a medical procedure to take us through the various steps to repairing that broken leg. But when it comes to our mental well-being, we still don't have as many conversations as we should. And the path to treatment and recovery remains a zigzagging path, I think, to say the very least. So on the second Tuesday of every month at 11:30, we're joined by Helen Fishburne, who is the CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Waterloo Wellington, for what we like to call a mental health check-in. Helen, always good to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Always great to be with you. And you're right. The journey to mental health and recovery is never a straight line.
Yeah, and, you know, I remember that. I think it was you that put it into my brain, this idea of, you know, when you have a broken leg or if you have a heart attack, like we have systems for that. We know exactly what to do to treat it. When it comes to mental health, not only do we have that zigzagging path, but we don't even always know where to start.
Absolutely. And it's a very individual illness as well.
Yep.
You know, certain conditions will affect people differently. Medications are very much related to your own biochemistry, genetic factors. There's never a straight line, but the important thing is that there is a journey and lots of support built into that. It just takes a bit longer to navigate, and of course, that's why we keep talking about it.
Absolutely. And I think a couple of big themes for us to talk about today, and I think they sort of connect to one another as well. Sunday was International Women's Day, so being the first day of the week, officially Sunday, we're making it International Women's Week here on the show. But connected to that, we also have an international event, and that is, of course, the war in Iran. And boy, we've talked about it at home, Helen. When events like this are unfolding in another part of the world, it can be stressful even here to watch what's going on and consume this kind of news.
Absolutely, Mike. And first of all, this war snuck up on us quickly. We might have seen the warning signs, but it erupted and escalated extremely quickly, and also really fiercely. It continues to be fierce. So when the world feels unstable, that worry travels across borders. We're watching this crisis afar, but it feels very stressful for us because there's so much uncertainty. Obviously there's a lack of control that we feel, and as Canadians, we always want to be good friends and neighbors and partners. But, we're on the edge of watching this. Are we going to be engaged in it? Are we going to be involved? What does it mean for the world? There is so much uncertainty as this unfolds. It's a constantly changing situation. There's a lot of catastrophizing. If you turn on the news, it's literally 24/7. So there's an exhaustion and saturation and deep worry that comes with that. And when all of that happens, Mike, our brain, kicks into its own threat detection system, even sitting here in Canada. It's all about how to protect ourselves, right? So our stress hormones like cortisol get triggered. We have an increase in alertness and vigilance. And, that might be normal in a high stress situation, but how long can we maintain that, right? And what's the toll on us? So these are all the things that we're going through emotionally and cognitively, and they're normal under these circumstances, but really it takes a big toll on our nervous system.
And does that mean, is that a signal maybe for us, Helen, to sometimes take a little break from that? I always hesitate to say that, when I host a show like this, but maybe we just need a rest every once in a while.
Oh, no question about it. And, I will say, Mike, it's important that we pay attention to this as well. We can't, not watch TV or not pay attention to things that are happening because these are important world developments. And it's okay to care deeply about them, right? We want to care deeply, especially for the people that are suffering so tremendously. But we also need to protect our well-being, right? So you're right. Watch the news a couple times a day, get updated, then shut it off. Go for some 10-minute walks or stretching. Finally the weather, at least the last few days, we won't talk about the weekend, but at least the last few days is warming up, right? Can you get out and enjoy the sunshine, stretch, do some deep breathing, call a friend? These, again, are the things that we have control of, but it doesn't mean that we don't care deeply as well.
And the emotional burden that we carry when we're watching this from so far away, I feel as though is carried even more. That burden is even greater for women. Sometimes it seems to me they are genetically predisposed to carrying that emotional burden. So how can we be sure, as we just came past International Women's Day, Helen, how can we be sure that the women in our lives are taking care of themselves as well as they want to take care of everybody else?
It's such an important thing for us to be conscious of because I think a lot of this is just ingrained, right? It's part of how we've been raised. It's in our culture. But International Women's Day is all about equality and continuing to recognize how much women carry, both in the paid workforce as well as in the unpaid workforces in families and in caregiving roles as well. So we know that women do more, and because of that, they have higher levels of psychological stress. They are more likely to report anxiety, depression, and burnout. And young women in particular, Michael, this is really a concern for me as I think about young women. They have some of the highest levels of distress nationally. And, we know that they're likely to seek mental health support more than men, but they're also likely to face long wait times and unmet needs as well. So for all of these reasons, we want to really pay attention. It's really interesting because women are often praised for how much they can handle, right? They juggle work and caregiving. They're holding families together. But we are not encouraged to rest and to pause. And there's a real irony in that, right? There's just an expectation you do more and more. And I know I feel it myself, and my mother will tell you, I just keep adding more to my plate, right? And we do it unconsciously in many ways, but are we equally resting and really rejuvenating, and not just sleeping? It isn't just about that, but it's that deep down rest and support.
I think of this often along the lines of what we are taught to do should we ever, heaven forbid, be in that situation where we need to put the oxygen mask on in an airplane. You put yours on first, and then you can deal with the next person that needs your assistance. And I think that's similar to what we're talking about here with women. You need to look after yourself because you want to look after everybody else, but you only have so much capacity in there.
Absolutely, and it really isn't because women are less resilient. In fact, they're incredibly resilient. It's because women are carrying more, right? And this is what happens when strong people are asked to carry too much for too long. So, it isn't about self-care. We're not saying, drink some smoothies and eat some kale salad. Like, it isn't about that, right? Although those things are great and great for your health. But it is all about that deep down, it's getting the mental health support because of the burden of caregiving and of all the pieces that we're holding. It's the emotional support. It's the spiritual rest. It's doing things for yourself that add value to your life rather than giving everything away. What can we do that adds value? So that's the kind of rest that allows the nervous system to settle, the mind to quiet, and really the whole emotional capacity to replenish. And so that's the part that we're really encouraging women themselves to pay attention to and to build that in. But also, Mike, the women in your life, the women in my life, right? How can we take care of the women and pay attention to those things? And I've got dinner tonight, or I'll take the kids to hockey, or I'll go over to your parents and do some caregiving, right? So we're consciously stepping in so that load that they're carrying isn't as heavy.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point about resilience, because it can be framed in such a way, or it can sound as though you need this break, you're not strong enough. But what it really is demonstrating here is this idea that women are almost trained to push through and not show any sign of slowing down. Exactly.
And again, praised for it.
Right.
Right? So it's really important in these conversations, and again, with all the uncertainty across the world, because our world is not getting easier. It's such a complicated, dark world right now with no signs of that changing. So it's really important to be aware that rest isn't weakness, right? It's mental health. And I think that's part of the mental shift that we all need to make in order to adjust to the world that we're living in. And again, especially women who tend to step in these moments and carry even more than they normally carry.
Such important messages, especially with so much going on and having just celebrated International Women's Day. Helen, I always enjoy the conversations. Thank you again for being here this morning.
Always great to see you, Mike. Take care of you and the women in your life.
I will, for sure. I look forward to our next chat.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Helen Fishburne is the CEO at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Waterloo, Wellington. I don't know about you, but in the Farwell household, the topic has come up quite a bit. It's quite the world these days, isn't it? It is such a volatile place. And I'm not blaming any one individual for that. You can do that if you want to. But look, there are big things going on. It seems to be that there is a lot of unrest right now. And that part and parcel comes with paying attention. I think it's critical that we pay attention. But there are limits, and we should allow ourselves those limits. You can set them yourself and then take those breaks. And particularly for the women in your life, this is a good reminder of the emotional burden that they always carry. It's ingrained in them, and they feel these things so deeply. So anything we can do to lower that stress or help to carry some of that burden, not because they're weak, because they're carrying so damn much. So a good reminder for us as we just marked International Women's Day on Sunday. And I mentioned to Helen there, International Women's Week is kind of what we're calling it here. That's how we're going to celebrate our All Request Friday this week when we play a little bit of your favorite song from a female artist. We're going to take Sunday's International Women's Day and extend it through for an International Women's Week All Request Friday event on Friday. So your favorite song by a female artist, just drop me an email to mike@570news.com. We'll add it to our list, or give Jen a call. She is answering the phones and working the board on the other side of the glass this morning. Let her know what song you would like to hear on Friday. All Request Friday from your favorite female artists. Quick break. When we come back, Cambridge Rotary Club is issuing grants to support community initiatives. We'll tell you how much money, where it's going, and the community initiatives being supported. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, it is a big day for one of our local Rotary clubs. The Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunset will be presenting a series of community grants later today. Here to talk more about it is the co-president of the Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunset, Nicole Fitzpatrick, joins the show. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know that Cambridge Sunset Rotary is a newer club. Can you give us a little idea of how and why the club was formed?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are the newest Rotary Club in Cambridge. We're now in our third Rotary year. The club started when a few members realized that there really wasn't a dinner time Rotary option in the community, and a lot of people wanted to get involved but can't make daytime meetings because of work. So Sunset was created as an evening club to give those people a way to volunteer, connect, and still balance work and family. It's been really exciting to see it grow over the last few years.
Now, I know that Rotary clubs, generally are looking to support community initiatives. For Sunset Rotary in Cambridge, what areas of need in the community, Nicole, do you focus on for your charitable initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So our club focuses on poverty relief, literacy, public safety, health and wellness, and youth development. What's really nice about tonight is that the organizations receiving funding align perfectly with those priorities. Rotary is really about humanitarian service and building goodwill in our community. And in many ways, the organizations we're supporting tonight are our partners in doing exactly that.
I know those checks, as you mentioned, are going to be doled out tonight. So how much money will you be handing out and to which organizations?
Yeah, I'm so excited. We will be presenting $27,500 to 7 organizations right here in Cambridge. And they are the Cambridge Self-Help Food Bank, Cambridge Memorial Hospital Foundation, Cambridge Community Association, Langs Community Health Center, the Literacy Group of Waterloo Region, the Salvation Army Community and Family Services of Cambridge, and the Waterloo Region Block Parent Program. These organizations do incredible work in the community, and so we're really proud to support them. And the good news is we're already planning another round of grants for later this fall to help support even more.
That's incredible. And $27,500 is certainly nothing to sneeze at. How did Cambridge Sunset Rotary go about raising that kind of money?
Yeah, so most of these funds come from our volunteer work at the Cambridge Bingo and Gaming Centre through the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Rotarians help during bingo sessions by supporting patrons and assisting in gaming areas. Those volunteer hours are what generate the funding that we're able to give back to the community organizations. We also run local events like our paper shredding and e-waste recycling day, which helps people clean out their homes and offices while also raising funds for community projects.
Are there ways, Nicole, that the community can support future fundraising efforts for Cambridge Sunset Rotary?
Absolutely. One of the easiest ways is to join us at our next Shred and E-Waste Recycling Day, which is on Saturday, April 25th at the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Community members and businesses can bring documents for secure shredding and electronics for recycling. And as a little thank you, the first 25 cars will receive a coupon for a free pancake courtesy of the Sunset Grill on Hespeler Road. And people can also follow the 3 Cambridge Rotary groups on Facebook to stay up to date on events and opportunities to support local organizations.
I know how anticipated those shred days are, so we'll mark down April the 25th and be there for that at the Chamber of Commerce, you said, right?
It is, yes, from 9 till 1. Yep.
Perfect. Nicole, enjoy tonight. I know it's always a good feeling to be supporting those community organizations. And thanks for all the work you and the folks at Cambridge Sunset Rotary are doing.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Enjoy your day. Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Nicole Fitzpatrick joins us. She is the co-president of the Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunset. I had the privilege of being at their inaugural, I think it was their inaugural, but it was very early on. When this club was formed, and what a great group and a great feeling that was in the room. I can't believe it's been 3 years already. My goodness. $27,500 to be doled out to 7 different organizations in Cambridge tonight from the Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunset. And they've got another round of granting that they anticipate doing in the fall. Those bingo nights, let me tell you, as somebody who's been deeply involved, as you know, over many years with Cystic Fibrosis Canada, our volunteers, the opportunity to, you put in some time, those volunteer hours, but they can really help get necessary monies into a charitable cause through those bingo nights and among other things. So good job by the Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunset, and 7 local organizations will benefit from that $27,500. Those granting checks to be doled out at a meeting this evening. All right, we are fast approaching the noon hour. Where does the time go on this show? I guess they say time flies when you're having fun, so this must be fun. Contrary to what they tell me at work or what they make me feel most days, apparently this is fun. So we're going to get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then we're going to have our phone lines wide open for our Talkback Hour here on the show. You can reflect on something we discussed on the show earlier today that you didn't get to weigh in on then, or something else that you want to bring to our attention. We're happy to hear it. We talked about practically the need for a pipeline to Lake Erie in this community to deal with our water situation. We talked about improving our odds of winning that roll up the rim contest at Tim's. Even how we get to and from the airport these days, when a long-standing business that used to shuttle us there has closed down. Lots to discuss. The Talkback Hour with open phone lines for you is next on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Papers and the trash. Or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside. Or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Well, it won't be the first time I utter this phrase. In fact, I've uttered it in the past. I'm not sure on the air. But I'm not shy. There's nothing to hide here. It's pretty good to be a Farwell. I was telling you earlier when we were talking to Michael Wallace, the statistician from the University of Waterloo, who uses in his classes the Tim Horton's Roll Up to Win contest. When it became digital several years ago, Michael couldn't resist, as a statistician, to try to find a way, by getting deep into the rules, how he might be able to improve his odds of winning. And that first year that the contest went digital back in 2020, he was winning at about a 98% success rate because he found the best time of day to take a spin digitally. Over the years, that number has come down. He's about 1 in 3 now. But if you missed it earlier, Michael suggests the best time to win the roll-up contest on the digital roll-up app is 8:30 on a weekend morning. So do with that information as you would like. When it comes to the cups, forget about it. And in terms of trying to improve your odds, they are what they are. And Michael also pointed out that of the 15 million prizes available in the contest overall, fewer than 100 are the big prizes, like the boat, the car, all those different things, right? So statistically speaking, you are far more likely to get a coffee or a donut. So what's that got to do with it being good to be a Farwell? Well, I told you during that conversation that I'm 1 for 1. And I didn't even have to pay for my one. They had Tim Horton's coffee in the media room at the WFCU Center in Windsor on the weekend. And they had cups, Tim Horton's cups with the coffee. So I just took a cup, I poured the coffee, I rolled up my rim, and I won a donut, which I plan to use for a muffin. And my Uncle Jim sends me a message, says I'm 2 for 2. He's won a coffee and he's won a donut. So the Farwells have not yet lost on roll up the rim to win so far this year, at least 2 of the Farwells. There are far too many of us to count these days. And you don't want to cross the Farwells because heaven forbid. Steve sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. In one of the first few years of the contest, one of my friend's parents in Waterloo won a Mustang convertible, red with a beige top. But it was only a 6-cylinder. I had an 88 5-liter. I love the 5-liter Mustang, Steve. I really do. Or Stu, pardon me. Stu from Waterloo. Farwell's Force member number 163. But knew somebody that won the Mustang convertible on the Roll Up the Rim contest. We had some fun talking about that earlier. I always have fun during this hour because I never know where it's going to go. It's your Talkback Hour with open phone lines. Maybe it's the prize you won, your record of winning and or not winning on the Roll Up the Rim contest this year. Hey, it's open lines, something you want to bring to our attention. You know the numbers, right? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We will start with Grant. Good afternoon, Grant.
Yeah, good afternoon. I've been trying to contact, and I have contacted this place that's putting a program on at the center in the square. I won't mention the place. You can look it up. It's a Murdoch mystery, and I don't know what it is with this place. Why it takes so long. It's been about a week since I emailed this place. I don't want to pay $97 for a ticket, and I don't want to pay a $50 ticket. I know I've dealt with them in the past, and they were able to
let me understand this. So there's a show at the center in the square,
right?
And you don't want to pay what they're asking for the price of a ticket,
right? And I
don't go.
I dealt with this place, and they were able to get me something very affordable.
I see.
Yeah, that's why. And it shouldn't take a week for this place to contact you. In my opinion, it's bad practice. It shows me that as a customer or past customer, I mean very little. Emails is a communication tool. You either use it or, I just don't understand this. Like, communicate with me. Give me a call.
Okay. Listen, Grant, I get it, and I'm so sorry you're having trouble with this. I really am. I don't disagree. And I'm old enough to still get frustrated when the only means of contacting a business that I want to contact is an email or a chat bot or something, right? I would much rather pick up the phone and have a conversation with you. So I'm sorry that you're not getting the customer service you would like in this particular case. Thank you for not mentioning the business. I have to be honest, my inner capitalist comes out. And look, I am on record, and I will say again, that I don't think any of the isms are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I do lean on some of the capitalist policies and practices in situations like this. In fact, we just talked about it. If you'll forgive the shameless self-promotion, we just talked about it on the OHL podcast this week. New episode out today. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. And fans up in Sault Ste. Marie are fired up because ticket prices are being increased there. And I'm like, well, and you do the math, and the season ticket price would be about $23 a ticket. I'm like, okay, well, is that value for a junior hockey game? I guess that's what the Sioux is trying to determine, if that's value in their market for a junior hockey game. I would certainly say it is. I think around $30 for a game of junior hockey, you're doing pretty good. Going to see some future NHLers on the ice tonight, by all means, right? But people get upset. Of course, when prices go up, people get upset. What will the market demand? And if you think the price is too high, I have a feeling somebody else will think it's just a fine price to pay, and maybe they will take advantage of that opportunity. Again, I know Grant's circumstances are somewhat different, so hopefully that organization can help him out and find something a little more affordable, because you shouldn't be denied those entertainment opportunities, right? Got to have some fun in this life. Tony, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I have a problem with a jack wagon I'm hoping you can help me out with.
Buddy, I got you.
All right.
Okay.
I went to the car wash yesterday. You know, the ones where you hose down your own car, whatever. So there was 11 cars in line. So the jack wagon in one of the bays decides he's going to take out his bucket and start washing his car down while there's 11 people waiting. So I went up to him and politely asked him, you know, when there's people waiting, if there's nobody waiting, take your bucket out. But if you have 11 cars waiting, you know, you hose it down and you dry it off outside. Apparently, I was in the wrong. So just thought I would share that, and maybe you can let the people know that if there's people waiting because it is springtime, people are washing their cars. This guy decided he wanted to pull out his bucket and take his time washing his car while there's 11 people waiting. So that's a jack wagon.
Tony, appreciate the call. I hear you. It reminds me of the day I was driving home from work, right down Ira Needles, and I go past the bus stop, and there's a little bench there for people to sit on, divided into 3 little seats. But there was one young person just sprawled out across all 3, feet up on the bench, while another woman stood there and just, well, couldn't sit if she wanted to, could she? Because the person that was there first decided to spread out across all 3. It occurs to me, and has on more than one occasion, that for some folks, you could call them jackwagons, I think, they believe they are the only person that exists in this world, or has the right to do the certain thing that they're doing at the time that they're doing it. And that's a tough one, Tony. I would certainly be with you on that. If there's a lineup of 11 people, you're not going to be taking all that time with the bucket. The other side of that coin, of course, is I told this story about my Tim Hortons muffin that I won on my roll-up. I stopped in at the drive-thru on the way to work yesterday morning. Was it just yesterday? Maybe it was last. It doesn't matter. I stopped in. I'm like, look at that lineup. I'm not waiting in a lineup like that in the drive-thru, and I just did a UE and left. I will go back, but I'm just like, I don't have that kind of time to wait right now. So if I was one of those other 11 vehicles in the line, then I might have just UE'd out of there, which then maybe is the message to the business itself saying, hey, don't bring your bucket in here, you jackwagon. No buckets allowed, because other people want to get in here and wash their vehicles as well. Tough spot, Tony. I tend to land on your side of this. That is kind of jackwagon-esque behavior, pulling out the bucket when all those other people are waiting. They just want to wash their cars. Water crisis? What water crisis? Let's talk to Mary next on Talkback. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Mike with a mic.
Hello, Mary on a bike.
Hey, this is an absolutely gorgeous day.
Is it? I haven't been out yet.
Well, you get out there, baby, and take Rosie for a walk.
I will.
Rosie's a pandemic pup.
I'm sure we're going to go for a walk.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm saying, oh, boy, water all around and not a drop to drink. If we all take water from Lake Erie, how long will that last before the Erie levels become a problem? We have allowed Chinese boats went in there and sucked up a bunch of bottled water. We haven't been good stewards of our water. We allowed Nestle for a minimal price to take all the water out of the aquifers in Aberfoyle. Like, Mike, what's going on here?
Bad management, Mary. That's what's going on.
Yeah, but you know what? We have been led to believe that we have so much water, but it has not been managed well. And, like I just said, what happens when Erie runs dry? Hey, what are you going to do, baby?
Thank you, Mary. Yes, the thing about that is, of course, it will not until a very, very very long time into the future, which is part of the problem. I'm glad Mary brought up Aberfoyle and the water taking that was going on there with Nestle for bottling water. Like, that was one of the... I still can't get over the fact that what we get out of the tap is as high a quality, if not higher, than what they were pulling out of the ground in Aberfoyle and selling back to us at goodness knows how much per bottle. The bottled water industry, for me, oy, oy, oy. But to Mary's point, and I said this when we talked about the pipeline to Lake Erie, which I don't like, do we need... Had we best get started on this path here to that pipeline to Lake Erie? I'm starting to think so. But one of the problems with that is just knowing that we can do it, or should we move forward with doing it, we kind of take care of the problem that we're having right now, right? But it I think, sends the message that water is an infinite resource, and it's not. Even if we get into Lake Erie and build a pipeline, it still, in the grand scheme of things, is a finite resource. These are troubled times, for sure. More time for you to talk back on the show. Make the phone call, start the conversation on the Talkback Hour. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour means your opportunity to do just that. Make a call. Tell us what's on your mind today. It could be something that is just on your mind and you want to share with the class. We're here for it. Or weigh in on an issue that we've discussed on the show already today. Walter is next. Good afternoon, Walter.
Good afternoon. Another fine day outside there, Mike. So I was listening this morning. I listened to you guys talking about that pipeline. I'm not sure that would solve our problems because, like, how many other big U.S. cities are also on these lakes? Like, what happens if all of a sudden, like, Chicago over Michigan? How about a Cleveland? How about, maybe a Buffalo? And they're a lot bigger than our region. And Lake Erie is not a very deep lake. So I don't know if that's a good idea. And also, like, if there is a water crisis, as they say in this area, why are we still having public car washes? You want to wash your car? I do it at your house where you're getting charged for it. And I just find this whole thing is completely run ass backwards, Mike. So I don't think the pipelines will solve our problem. I hear people say, the water won't run out for a long, long time and all this sort of thing. Well, that's what they think. I mean, look what happens when they think they know how certain things are going to go, and then all of a sudden, that just got accelerated by 100 years or half a century or whatever. So they don't have a clue what's going on, and we need to look after what we have now, as far as I'm concerned, Mike. So I will let you go, buddy, and you take care, and good luck in the playoffs again.
Thanks, Walter. A Guelph Storm fan wishing the Kitchener Rangers good luck in the playoffs. What if we meet in the first round of the playoffs or at another time, Walter? One never knows. You still going to wish us good luck then? Just quickly, I will add to what Walter said or reinforce the point. One of the things that has surprised me, quite frankly, in all of this talk about water and the shortage of it is there has not been one even modest push towards conservation efforts. Like, I'm old enough to remember when we had lawn watering bans in this community. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't give a tinker's darn about how green or brown my grass is. The grass gets what the Mother Nature gives it. But I think we still live in a world whereby we're only supposed to water based on the house number that we have and then the day of the week. I don't know. But there hasn't been any reinforcement that I've heard anyway of conservation efforts in the midst of all of this. And I find that curious, to say the least. Ted is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Ted.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I just about hung up because the previous caller called to make the same point I have, is that, first of all, Lake Erie is a shallower lake of the Great Lakes. It's, I think there's geopolitical considerations that nobody seems to be bringing up. The American side has, as he pointed out, Detroit, Buffalo, Cleveland, Toledo. I believe there are laws restricting the two countries from having cities take pipelines out of the lake water, and I'm sure if we started doing it, that Mr. Trump would love to be able to do it for his major cities in Ohio and Michigan. So, but I think it's under international law that we're not supposed to be doing that.
Ted, I appreciate the call. As per our guest this morning, who used to be a high, I forget the title. Anyway, a director of public works, in Haldimand County. When the province first got its Nanticoke water complex up and running, the water taking permit was there from Lake Erie. So that does exist. I don't think you're wrong at all about the geopolitical intricacies of all of this, certainly in the modern context. But the water taking permits were there all those years ago when the province started at least kicking tires on this plan. Joe is with us on Talkback. Hello, Joe.
Morning, Mike. Yeah, there's a pipeline in Lake Huron. So I don't know what all this is about, but that's not why I called in. Mike, I noticed something disturbing yesterday watching the baseball classic, and it just struck me, and I couldn't believe it. There was $1 billion, that's a B, $1 billion wrapped up in salary with just two people on Team Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic. Just two people. Now, doesn't that kind of make you not want to watch baseball again? You know?
It doesn't bother me.
All right. Well, I find it a bit disturbing, and it's a sign of the times. Do you remember the Montreal Expos before they caved?
Sure.
I think their total payroll was like $35 million before they became the Washington, whatever the hell they are.
Yep.
Yeah. So just a little perspective, and I'll leave you with that.
All right, Joe.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Joe. I shouldn't say it doesn't bother me. I've just kind of given up on that. That's what the industry, that's the industry standard, right? We think you are worth this much to us because we are going to get that and then some in return for our investment in you. So, yeah, we could make all kinds of wacky things about that, right? I remember thinking way back when that nobody needs to be paid $1 million to play the game of hockey. $1 million. Anyway, an update from the 570 News Center, and we continue Talkback. What's on your mind on the Mike Farwell Show? This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day from noon until 1, we open the phone lines to give you the chance to have your say on the issues of the day, or an issue you would like to make the issue of the day. Consider it the water cooler or the lunchroom table at your place of work, and we'll just sit here and take your calls and see where the conversation takes us. Paul is next. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hey, Mike, it's number 211. I forgot to tell you that, but I called in a week or two ago and told you we were talking about the water, that I had put an 800-gallon tank, and I'm collecting rainwater off one downspout of my place. And you're talking about water again today. You know, a couple things that have come, or one thing that's come to mind a few times for me is there a reason why the community can't put up, I don't know if it's the word's not coming, but put a demand in that we couldn't go back to like 150 years ago and require all new housing to be built with a cistern and have the rainwater, and everybody's got to have a sump pump now, so have the sump pump water and the rainwater going into that and at least flush the toilets, because I think that's probably one of the biggest users is toilets. And could they not save a pile of money and use it on your garden? Could they not save a pile of water and time that way? Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Let me use this as the opportunity to shamelessly remind you about Farwell's Force. Paul said he's number 211. That's the 211th member. We're now 350 strong plus and growing. Farwell's Force is a force for good. It's a force for change. It's a force to be reckoned with. I may need to rally you on something I think is pretty important in the not too distant future. But if you're not yet a member, I mean, question your life choices, would you? But you're welcome to join our ever-growing force. We're happy to assign you a number. I like to keep the numbers in sequential order because I'm anal that way. But hey, if you got a favorite number or something, you know, you want a number for a certain reason, you just do you as far as that's concerned. But the only requirement to be a member of Farwell's Force in good standing is listening for 15 minutes a day. That's it. It can be any 15 minutes, 9 to 9:15, 10:05 to 10:20, whatever the 15 minutes is that you're listening to right now is part of your 15 minutes every day. By all means, you are welcome to join us on Farwell's Force. Paul's point about the cistern and what we might be able to build into or go back to when it comes to how we are building homes and communities and cisterns, etc., reminds me of an email I got earlier from Clive, who writes to Mike at 570news.com. I don't mean to be Captain Obvious, but if we take water from the ground, why are we not making sure more water is absorbed by the ground and make it mandatory that every new build has a water retention system installed as part of building requirements? Why are we letting all the runoff go directly into the rivers and streams? P.S. As an added bonus, you also reduce flooding. Simple changes will make a big difference. And to Paul's point on us talking about water a couple of weeks ago and talking about it again today, I mean, it is probably the issue in the community right now. And if you've got suggestions for solutions or, you know, thoughts about how it is you're dealing with this right now, happy to hear those as well as we continue Talkback. Nate, Farwell's Force member number 8. We'll never forget that. Number 8, Nate. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just wanted to thank you for having the JIT Transit on there today, because I was Nate Transit this morning. My dad needed a ride to the airport from Brantford to Pearson because he usually would take air transit and didn't know any other options at the time. So had to get him there for 7:45. So rush hour. Yeah, Toronto, I don't like it.
Who does? It just sucks the soul right out of you.
Credit to all those drivers that have to do that every day. Like, coming back was fine for me because, you know, not much traffic, but looking at the traffic going from Kitchener into Toronto at 8 o'clock in the morning, it was backed up all the way past the en route near Cambridge.
Oh yeah, it's a mess out there. I don't know how anybody does it anymore.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for having them on there. I've already looked them up, so I'm probably going to try to get a booking for that. Anyway, so my wife wanted to let you know that she's running at about a 30% win rate on the physical cups right now.
Nice.
On the Tim Hortons thing. And speaking of her, I think Roxanne might need a number.
Oh, we can do that. We can absolutely do that.
Yeah, she's too shy to call in, but
you make sure she listens every day. Or she makes sure you listen every day.
Now, here's a point.
Uh-oh.
She does have to work in the office sometime where she can't listen.
Yeah, but she only needs to listen for 15 minutes.
From her home office, she can, and you should really stop ripping on the people that work from home because they can actually listen to you.
Stop. You can listen at work. You ever heard of earbuds?
Oh, yeah, and then you get told not to have earbuds in at work.
Then get a new place to work. Listen, let me talk to that manager. I will straighten that nonsense out in a hurry.
And to be fair, when she does get home, I usually play back some clips on your show afterwards. So she does listen to about 15 minutes.
There you go. You make her a captive audience, don't you?
And yeah, well, of course I do. But right. Yes, I'll give her whatever number you got available because she can't call in. I'm not going to pick for her.
344. Roxanne is 344.
344. Perfect, brother.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Have a great day.
You're welcome. You have a great day, too. Nate, Farwell's Force member number 8, just added his wife, Roxanne. Farwell's Force member number 344. Here we go. I like it. I know I said before we're 350 plus because there are randos all over the place. I love my randos, though, too. I don't even know how many randos are on there. But anyway, sequentially, next up is 345. Maybe it's your lucky number. I don't know. Kyle, Farwell's Force member number 6, which is not as high a number as his girlfriend, but who's keeping track?
Wow.
Oh.
I'm going to have to start cutting down my hours from 15 minutes now every day to listen.
Okay.
Is that cool? Because that's what you said. You only have to listen for 15 minutes a day.
That's all I said. That's all I ask. I'm not
cutting my hours now.
I'm demanding. I'm not that demanding. 15 easy minutes every day.
Why, for this water shortage, I just got a question for you. What I do at my house, because, as you know, I grow a lot of fruits and vegetables in my backyard, almost like a little mini homestead. I know people said rain barrels and stuff, but even small, I don't even have rain barrels. I just have small buckets that I put around my eaves trough and stuff, and that seems to work. And sure, I might not get like a full tank every day, but like when it does rain and I do get those things, they fill up pretty quick, and it's just good enough for me to put. I could get 2 buckets in each watering can that I could get. So I have around 6 buckets around my house just collecting water. So it just shows you even that just that little bit helps like every time you do some gardening and stuff, right? But there should be I don't know why they don't build houses and have like little cisterns or something in the ground, like a septic system just for rainwater to collect, and then that way when you have a sprinkler or whatever, you just turn it on, it runs on that until it runs out, then it goes into like the city system or something, you know? I know it's a little bit expensive probably, but just small things like that could definitely help out in the long run, no?
Sure.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have your rainwater coming down your roof, goes into a collection tank, almost like, you know, like let's say the size of a small greenhouse or something, like a tiny one, right? Maybe 100 liters of water. You turn your sprinkler or your hose on, it runs off of that. You know, you get like, let's say 20 or 30 minutes of water every day from that until it runs dry. That would help out quite a bit, but we're too late. Like we don't want innovation. We just want to make changes and try to fix the problem and not the actual, you know, the issue that's going on, right? They just want to do everything quick. So I don't know. Europe is so much more advanced than we are, and I don't understand why we don't just copy half of what they do. So that's just my opinion. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Kyle. Appreciate the call. Listen, I didn't mean to sound dismissive in any way when I just said sure, but I'm confused and confounded as to why we haven't gone in this direction, or, you know, sooner than now. Like all of a sudden, boom, you're running out of water. Like, anyway, our new regional CAO is starting today. I hope he's listening to the show. Just check it. Hey, what's going on in this region in the past 7 years since I left? You got some problems, Mr. Batty, coming back in. Welcome back. I hope you can fix things, but quick, you know. Ellen is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Ellen.
Hello. Ellen, I listen to your show every day, and I'd like a number.
Oh, how about number 345, Ellen?
345 is wonderful.
Okay, it's all yours.
That. Now, about the water, some time ago, years, I guess, a water bottling company had to have permission to take our water. I'm very curious. They're still selling bottled water in the grocery stores and places. Are we still selling them our water?
No, I believe they have left. That came up earlier in Aberfoyle, but the company, it was originally Nestle, and I forget the international company that bought it, but I think they've left.
Oh, okay.
I hope I'm right about that. I'm pretty sure they have.
And the man that you were speaking to earlier about the buckets collecting water?
Yes.
The city used to give out a rain barrel.
I know it. You betcha.
Yeah. I wonder if they still do.
You know what? I can't be sure. I seem to recall recently enough, Ellen, that there was a rain barrel giveaway day, but I'll have to keep my ears on that one.
Because that would certainly help.
Certainly would.
As the man said, for watering the gardens and the lawn and everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ellen. Welcome to Farwell's Force.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Bye now.
Ellen is number 345. A force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. Lisa, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Number 59.
I love it. Welcome aboard. Good to hear your voice.
So I'm going to put Kyle, who always has something good to say, and your last caller together, and they're there should be a promotion of some kind every spring, and I'm pretty sure that the Waterloo Region still does the rain barrels. There might be a charge for them, but it's a discounted rate.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, so they've got this thing going on there where they've got so many people that have hooked their downspouts into the sewage system. So what about doing some sort of a promotion where your rain barrel comes as part of the removing the downspout from the sewage system thing, and it's, you know, then you're getting your rainwater for your plants, and then you're also doing your part to disconnect from the sewage system. And full disclosure, I'm not in Waterloo Region. I'm in Oxford County, but we have 3 rain barrels at our place, and when it rains, they all fill up, and we use that on our vegetable garden, on our flower beds, on our hanging plants, and usually don't run out unless it's been really dry. So, Kyle, if you're listening, rain barrel really helps a lot if you're trying to garden, and you can even use it for, you know, if you have a pet, for washing your dog, nice soft water. When I grew up, so it makes me sound really old because he was talking about we should have cisterns. Well, I can tell you all the old farmhouses had cisterns, and I'm pretty sure that's what the women used for washing, was the soft water from their cisterns. So that definitely would be something that home builders should be considering bringing back, because there's something to help people save water as well.
You know, Lisa, I have to admit, so I used to have the rain barrel set up at home, and maybe you can help me with this. This just goes to show what a loser weirdo I am. I didn't like the smell. It revolted me. Was I doing something wrong, or do I just have to get used to it?
I think, well, and honestly, I mean, I don't drink it, Mike. I'm not really sure what you're doing smelling it.
I would be in the backyard, and there's the rain barrel, and it stank.
Well, I feel like maybe you had some leaves or something in it, and they were rotting, because it really shouldn't be smelling.
Okay. See, this is why I asked you.
Yeah, I think you can put a drop of probably like liquid bleach in or something like that if there's a concern about smell, and I don't think that would hurt the water. I know there's also something about putting a little bit of dish soap in to prevent bugs from breeding in it.
Yeah.
But those are, I'm sure Google rain barrel search will give you a lot more helpful tips than what I do. But it really shouldn't smell, because we have 3 rain barrels, and 2 of them are right beside each other, and I've never noticed the smell.
Okay. I'm doing something wrong, as usual. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Have a great afternoon. We're full of good ideas on this show. Like I said, new CAO starting in the region today. His first day back on the job. He helped until 2019. He was with us for about 9 years, helping get that Ion Light Rail, or 2017, get Ion Light Rail going. And then off to Metrolinx, out to Calgary to manage a transit project there. And now starts today back at our region where he spent 9 years, and is going to be our new Chief Administrative Officer, Darshpreet Badi. Welcome back. Are you listening for some ideas today? Because Farwell's Force is full of them. Ideas, that is. We're not full of anything else. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I was mentioning a moment ago, as we continued to add to our growing force that is known as Farwell's Force, a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with, that I may need to call upon you to rally for a cause here. And look, I guess what I would say is, I know it won't be universally popular, but it is something that I think we have to, at the very least, give serious consideration to. Maybe have a good old-fashioned, honest-to-goodness debate or discussion about it in the region. Because I know there are competing ideas and competing interests, and far be it from me to sound too much like Ontario Premier Doug Ford. But I was thinking about this when Premier Ford was talking yesterday about the convention centre he would like to have built in Toronto. Forget for the moment that he wants to create an island, get the fill. David Drew sent me a message yesterday, said it's actually a good idea because to create that island, to fill in and build a man-made island, Doug Ford could just use the dirt that's pulled out of the tunnel that they make under the 401. You see, so you're getting the tunnel and you're getting the man-made island. But forget that part. Just listen to what Doug Ford had to say about the convention center itself.
We need a world-class convention center as well. Folks, we're 24 out of 25 cities in the world. We're losing millions of people coming for conventions. They aren't even looking at Toronto anymore. Number one, the size of the convention center, you need 2 million square feet. But even the existing convention center, it's, well, we've all been in it. You're going up, you're going down, you're going up, you're going sideways, across the road. Doesn't cut it. It's on 6 acres. We're going to build a spectacular, world-class venue that we're going to be able to go out there and sell to the world. And we're going from last place to first place. And it's going to create billions of dollars of economic growth. So that's what we're going to do.
We're going to go from last place to first place. We're going to create billions of dollars in spin-off revenue. These are the nice to haves, and we've heard people say, right? I could use money for a hospital. We should invest in this. Again, competing interests, competing priorities. But now that the region is considering a report on the former bus terminal lands on Charles Street, right? I shared with you on this show. I wrote about it for the space that the Waterloo Region Record gives me in the newspaper. And I think we got to get big and bold here. I understand the competing interests and the competing priorities, but I'm a little bit worried right now, and this is where I might rally you around. I mean, we can disagree on it. Maybe we can just have the debate and discussion here on the show. I'm okay. Like, tell me where you disagree, by all means. But I'm a little bit worried that what we're becoming here in the region is a place that lacks ambition, that lacks vision or big ideas, and just wants to have enough space for 1 million people to live. What are we going to do for fun? What are we going to do that's interesting? What are we going to have that's interesting? What things will attract people from outside of this community into this community? And I think state-of-the-art entertainment and sports facility, convention center I mentioned. I think there's a lot of opportunity in downtown Kitchener with the former Market Square, with this bus terminal. Heck, all the way down Charles, I told you, from Ontario right down to Francis Street where the tannery is. Lots of opportunity there. But what do we want to do with it? And I worry a little bit that all we want to do is make sure 1 million people have a place to live. Who cares if they have anything to do in town? I hope we can get some vision here. Again, not to sound too much like Doug Ford, but I do not dismiss out of hand the reason that Doug Ford has those ideas. We'll continue the conversation. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9, okay? You are invited then as well. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.